Hey, what's going on, everybody? Hi, it's Tuesday. Welcome to the program. It's the Jeff Gerstmann Show. It is late April, and I'm your host for this week's installment of the show. My name is Jeff Gerstmann. Hi. My name is Jeff Gerstmann. Hello. I'm here to talk to you about a variety of things. Some of them are related to video games. That's a big part of the show. I have been spending a lot of time playing Star Wars Jedi Survivor, but I can't talk about that. That's, in fact, I think it was only yesterday that they were allowing people to say, I am playing Star Wars Jedi Survivor. So we're not going to talk about it this week, but that's what I've been spending most of my time with for the past little bit here, and yeah. So more to say about that soon. In fact, I think we'll probably, when that game comes out, I will probably stream some of it. That'll probably be how it goes. You know, do something from the earlier parts of the game and stream some of that. That seems like probably something that people might want to check out. I don't know. We'll see. I went and played it, you know, a few weeks ago, and you know, that was a pretty good time. So, does the full game hold up? I don't actually know. I'm still playing it. But yeah, I'm still making my way through that, and yeah. But gosh, you know what else? I have been investigating storage facilities. I have been looking at the pricing, the cost of getting like a storage locker somewhere. I don't want to do it, but it's the only way I'm going to have any wiggle room to get through the stuff in the garage to throw things away, is to take the stuff I know I don't want to throw away and put it in there temporarily. Hopefully temporarily. I have to. Like, there's no room to move in there. So I can't like get to other things in the garage to dig through them and sort through them and throw the stuff away without doing that, because there's just there's no way for me to do that. The idea is to then get a shed built here and then move all the stuff out of that locker and back into the shed and then have everything here, you know. For a 10-foot by 10-foot, they want $200 a month. Build the shed first. I can't. Like, no, there's no time for that. The timing involved on this is just not working out. So in order to get things moving, like, I can't just build the shed tomorrow. I have to go get permits. I have to go get a contractor. I have to go, like, there's a ton of fucking things that have to happen before that can happen. And I can't wait around for months and do nothing while all of that other shit gets underway. So I kind of have to, in order to kind of get moving, this is sort of the thing I have to do. So yeah. But so I've been investigating the pricing on this. A 10 by 10 is like, yeah, it's around $200 a month for one that you can drive up to. There was a couple that were like, it's inside and upstairs. And I'm like, nah, I'm not going to, not going to haul all this stuff into an elevator and then raise it up the elevator and then haul that out of the elevator. Like, I'm just not going to do that. And so, yeah, this is probably how it's going to have to happen. It's unfortunate. I really don't want to do it. I don't want to have to pay for I don't want to have to pay for a storage shed. The prices on those have only gone up, and it's, you know, you're paying to store stuff. It's a bad scene, but, you know, it's kind of the only way forward on getting things happening. So I'm going to have to do that. And then, yeah, some other ideas about, you know, what's going to happen with some of those games as I get through the process of pruning the collection and getting rid of a lot of them. I think a lot of them. Probably a lot of them. I don't know. I'll have to go through all the games and really think about it. But in my mind, when I think about what games do I want to keep, you know, the unfortunate thing is that the games I'm most likely to keep are the ones that are going to take up most of the space. It's like Super Nintendo cartridges, in the grand scheme of things, does not take up much space. It's 1 to 2 boxes. It's the 600 Xbox 360 games that is actually taking up most of the space. It's the hundreds of PlayStation 3 and PlayStation 2 games that take up a lot of the space. And my general guideline with this right now is stuff that is not emulated well is stuff that I am probably more likely to hang on to. Because what's the point of owning a Super Nintendo cartridge in this day and age? Right? I mean, there are so many ways around that. And I owned that. Like I got 12 different ways to play SNES games that don't involve using cartridges. So I'm thinking I'll probably look at that collection and go like, all right, there are 5 SNES games I want to keep. And it's like, off the top of my head, it's Bill Lambier's Combat Basketball. It's Super Smash TV. It's, I don't know, like in my head, I'm like, I should keep Mortal Kombat, but like, who cares? Like that's not the version to keep, right? That's not the version worth keeping. But then you get into, it's hard, man, because I got this hierarchy. I think everyone's got their own hierarchy in their head, right? Because like for some reason, Super Nintendo games are really easy because they're just loose carts, right? And you just look at them and go like, peh, whatever, man, get rid of them. Who cares? It's just loose cartridges. There's nothing fancy. But when I think about Genesis games, I go, oh, well, those are nice. I should keep those. And I think it's because they come in fancy boxes. And I think that's like clouding the process a little bit. It's like, yeah, TurboGrafx games are a great example of like, yeah, I don't need them, but also they're tiny little cards. So who cares? Like, that's not the thing that's taking up space. I'll probably get rid of a lot of them because I have a flash cart for the card for the TurboGrafx, and so I don't need to own those. So yeah, it's a very strange process that I've never really had to think about, that I've been spending quite a bit of time thinking about. But at the same time, yeah, it's when I look at the Xbox 360 games I own, which that's the largest individual collection of for any platform. I have the most 360 games out of anything. That's like 600 and something games. I look at those and I think like, okay, I've got a lot of Madden games in there that I don't need. I've got all these NBA 2K, NCAA whatevers, and all of this other stuff that you just don't need. And so like that's probably a pretty good starting place. But then when I really think about it, like, am I going to get rid of a bunch of Xbox 360 games? Probably not, because I don't have a good easy way to play Xbox 360 games that don't involve owning the disc. Emulation is not there yet, so running it on a PC is, it works in some cases, but is not always awesome. There are going to be times when I'm going to want to fire up an old Xbox and maybe get achievements in some old games or something too. So it feels like there are reasons to hang on to those. PlayStation 2, same type deal, a lot of sports games that I probably don't need to own. And, just a lot of fluff, but also a lot of weird Japanese games that I would love to hang on to and love to continue to own. So yeah, I don't know. This stuff is, I don't need it. That's a big part of it. It's like, I'm not really like attached to a lot of this stuff, but I'm thinking about it in terms of like, would there be actual value in maintaining ownership on some of that stuff? The answer is like, probably yes. But like, yeah, so I guess like that's my worry, right? Is I'll go through this process of getting rid of a lot of games, and then it won't actually save that much space, because it'll be like 5 to 7 boxes of like, here's all my Super Nintendo games. I got rid of those. And I have like 5 of them. Here's all my 8-bit NES games. I just don't need them. Got rid of, I'll keep like 6 of them. But like a lot of stuff is really small. Like I'm not going to get rid of any Atari Lynx games. Ever. I'm not going to get rid of any Neo Geo Pocket games. I'm going to keep all of that stuff. And so really the easy games to get rid of are the games that are extremely well emulated or represented by flash carts. And so that's like 2 big bins of N64 games, which is not no space, but it's not, again, the bulk of it. So maybe then it's like, okay, do I need to get rid of some hardware as well? And I do really want to go through. That's something I've never done, is really catalog what do I have hardware wise, because I know I have like 7 Xbox 360s out there at least. And I've got a lot of PlayStation 2s. I have like 4 or 5 of them. So it's like maybe you keep one big launch PS2 because those are the ones that are easiest to, when it comes to slapping a hard drive into them. That's the easiest one to do that with. I've got a clear blue one that's Japanese that's just rad, and I would keep that. Maybe you keep one slim one just for kicks. I don't know. I have a debug, so I keep that. But like, I think I have like 3 GameCubes, and I'm not even sure that I need 1 GameCube these days. So, I don't know. It's hard, but whatever. The idea is that, like, that's why I'm building the shed, right? It's the general idea is that I'm only getting rid of the stuff I absolutely positively don't need, and I should have the room to keep pretty much whatever I want. And should have enough room to keep all of that stuff. But yeah, it's just going to take time to get there. And the order of operations is all weird because of the way things have to go with, like, okay, I literally can't throw any garbage away without driving to the dump. And it has been very hard to find time for a dump run these days. Like, the kids are young, just like stuff's just crazy. There's no, like, the idea of like having multiple hours in a day to load up a truck and drive the truck and unload the truck. Like, that's just not how my life is working right now. So it's just, not really as possible as it should be. So, then it's like, okay, can I get I'll have a dumpster brought here, and then I can, then I can take care of all that stuff and be done with it. But there's some stuff I have, like I have a very old drone, an AR drone. I think it's called AR drone. I think is the actual name of it. I have 2 of them that THQ gave out when they were putting out the original Homefront. And you pilot it with an iPhone app. I don't even know if the app is still available or compatible with current phones, to be honest. I've never taken them out of the box. And I just have these things. And I was like, well, I don't, I should open them up and see if they have the logo for the game on them, because that might make it at least a little bit interesting. But it's a Parrot AR drone, I think that's the name of it. But it's like I think they went on to make multiple generations of those things, and I bet that the current, even if they are still around, I bet the current version of the app doesn't even fucking support the original drones or something. It's probably impossible to fly them now. I remember I tried to get Danny O'Dwyer to take them when he was taking my NBA Jam machine off my hands. I was like, "Yeah, I got these drones. You want some drones? I got a couple of drones. You have fun with some drones." But it's a lot of weird crap like that. That's like, it's not quite one of a kind, but it's weird stuff that, like, who kept that? Some of it is awesome, like the Jammer Lammy guitar that Sony made in pretty limited quantities. I have the Rock Revolution drum kit. What if the classiest drum kit in all of video game drumming? So yeah, it's a lot of frustrating stuff like that you look at and go like, there are not a lot of these. If I throw this away, no one will ever see one again. But that doesn't mean it's worth anything to anyone. So there's a lot of stuff that, that some of that stuff would be perhaps stuff that a Video Game History Foundation would appreciate. And I have indeed supplied them with a lot of stuff. that it's a little dirty because stuff got dirty in the garage and moving over the years and all of that. So, but yeah, they have a lot of stuff. They got that plush Bubsy off my hands, which I got a lot of offers to sell that, and that never felt right to me. Like I definitely got approached multiple times of people trying to buy my plush Bubsy, and I was like, no, it belongs in a museum. Private collectors. So yeah, so I passed it their way, and now they can handle that. Let's take a quick break. We'll come back. We'll talk about some video games. XDefiant, for example. That is a video game, I'm told. We'll be right back after this. Science proves that cold sleep is better sleep. Temperature-controlled sleep repairs muscle and improves cognitive function, so you always start your day feeling sharp, confident, and energized. And that is where Sleep Me comes in. Sleep Me is the new home for Chili Sleep. They're bringing you the same great sleep that Chili Sleep offered, but under a new name. Sleep Me makes the coldest sleep systems available. They create the environment that meets the body's natural need for lower core temperatures, promoting deeper restorative sleep. And these sleep systems are water-based, temperature-controlled mattress pads that fit over your existing mattress to provide your ideal sleep environment. They keep your bed at the perfect temperature for deep, cold sleep. And Sleep Me just launched the Dock Pro sleep system with new Hyper AI. You can experience ultimate cooling power with the Dock Pro sleep system. Pair it with a new Sleep Me app and get real-time temperature adjustments based on your current sleep activity from the new Hyper AI technology. It's the industry's first sleep tech that tracks and optimizes your sleep temperature for you in real time. And now you can get the best sleep of your life with AI-driven technology. Now, you had trouble staying asleep, falling asleep, I'll go through these jags where I'm waking up once an hour, every hour and a half, just like, what is going on? Where am I? Who am I? Why? Why is this all happening? It's because I'm sleeping hot. I'm running hot. I've got to keep it cool. And you can keep it cool with Sleep Me. Head over to sleep.me/Jeff to learn more and save 20% off the purchase of any new Dock Pro, Uller, or Cube sleep system. This offer is available exclusively for you, listening to my voice right now, and only for a limited time. That's sleep, sleep.me/Jeff to take advantage of our exclusive discounts and wake up refreshed every day. Okay, we're back. Hi. I went to the we got groceries from like a healthier grocery store. Don't ask me why or nothing. But that's always an interesting opportunity to acquire an energy drink that you maybe have never seen before. And so I found this. It is Pineapple Paradise, which is a great name. That makes me excited because I love pineapples and I'm all about paradise. But then above it, it says Zevia 0 calorie energy. And the only time I've ever had any kind of Zevia branded beverage, it was some kind of fake Coke, fake cola thing. And it was absolutely dreadful. It was a trash tier drink. It was pour this out unpleasant. And so I thought I would get my hands on this. Why don't we, let's just get into this. Let's just get into this. It's a small can. It's 120 milligrams of caffeine. That's 10 milligrams an ounce. Hey, this smells very sweet. Did I try the pineapple milkshake at Jack in the Box? I did. It made my stomach feel bad. It led to a situation. I did have the pineapple milkshake that Jack in the Box was selling. It was a very unpleasant experience for me last week. I left that out of the news, but here we are. This smells like pineapple. This actually smells quite good. This smells very nice. Oh, no, that's not... No. Would it have been better with 2 tacos for 99? What do you think? I just got the shake? Damn, son, come on. You're not going if you're not getting some tacos from a Jack in the Box, then are you really even going to Jack in the Box? This is a piss poor beverage right here. It is not terrible or anything, but it is oh, yuck. Whoa, there's another level to this where it tastes even worse. Yeah, the aftertaste on this it really sneaks up on you, and it's really quite bad. It is not a sweet pine. It smells like it's going to be a nice sweet pineapple beverage. You know, like you went and got a pineapple crush or whatever at the cool gas station. You went to the cool gas station that has the good drinks, even though it's like the gas seems shady. Like that they went around and siphoned all the gas out of cars around the neighborhood and are reselling it to you. But they've got better drinks. And so you're like, well, I don't know. These gas pumps look like rough, and I'm afraid to use a credit card here because I know you're about to steal it. But it's mostly just disappointing. It's mostly just not it's not pineapple enough, and also it's got a really strong back edge to it. And no one likes that. Let's get the list up here and get this going here. It's not pleasant. It's yeah, too many chemicals, too much drugs, not enough pineapple. And it's got like a, you know, it says pineapple paradise, which can imply a lot of things. But there's kind of a coconut-ish flavor here going on, and that is more prevalent than the pineapple. You know, like they went for like a general tropical, like a general suntan lotion kind of taste, and yeah, it's no good. It's not straight poison though. You know, so when we think about the bottom of the list here, we think about some truly dreadful beverages, some of this stuff is getting poured down the sink. It's like that level of bad. I think when we get to the kind of G Fuel radioactive lemonade on down on the list, this is stuff that you should not drink. This is stuff you should pour down the sink type stuff. And I might even, like, there's an iffy zone here from Zoa Fruit Punch on down where you're like, this is kind of at your own risk territory. But I'll say what we're drinking now is significantly worse than Bang Miami Cola, which has become kind of a guidepost on our list here because I drank 12 of them because someone sent a case. And they're not good drinks, but I'm innately familiar with that beverage because I drank a full case of them. So it's notably worse than that. It is not worse than a Lottie New Arctic White, though. It is worse than this chocolate. No, It's not as bad as Pink Drip. Pink Drip was quite bad. But is it better or worse than the chocolate energy drink? Oh, God. The whole lotta chocolata. This is what am I doing with my life? One might ask. This is not as bad as that. Okay, we're gonna put it here. We're gonna write Zevia 0 calorie energy pineapple paradise, and that is our new number 86. Congratulations. We now have 102 drinks on the list. If you're on the Discord, I have posted a link to a persistently updated version of the list in the news channel. And yeah, check that out. If you want to get on the Discord, you can go over to patreon.com/Jeff Gerstmann. You can sign up, get access to the Discord, get an ad-free version of this show, get additional bonus shows and content. You know the routine: Game Boys to Men, the Hall of Fame, so on and so forth. Check all that out, patreon.com/Jeff Gerstmann, or I think you can still go to enjoyyourgaming.com to get over there as well. And on that note, we are going to take one more break here before we get into things, and we'll be right back in a minute. Nope, wrong. That's the wrong thing. I clicked the wrong thing. One time I was driving down the freeway, and I saw the back of a dump truck. It was like a smallish dump truck, and it said on the back, "You've got to get it up to get your rocks off." And I thought, well, that is the truest phrase in the history of the human language. But what if you're having trouble? I mean, the opposite. You know, if you're not able to get it up, can you get your rocks off? I thought, well, we may never know. And thankfully, we don't need to know. Because now, if you're in a position where you might be having a little bit of trouble getting it up, there's BlueChew. That's right, BlueChew. This episode is sponsored by BlueChew. Let's talk about sex. Let's talk about doing it. Let's talk about fucking. Let's talk about making the fucking happen. As the dump truck says, you've got to get it up to get your rocks off. Remember when you were always ready to go? Are you maybe a little less ready these days? Well, you can increase your performance and get that extra confidence in bed over at BlueChew.com. What is BlueChew? BlueChew is a unique online service that delivers the same active ingredients as Viagra, Cialis, and Levitra, but in chewable tablets and at a fraction of the cost. You can take them anytime, day or night, so you can plan ahead or be ready whenever an opportunity arises. It's a very simple process. You sign up at BlueChew.com, consult with one of their licensed medical providers, and once you're approved, you'll receive your prescription within days. And hey, this is all done online. No visits to the doctor's office, no awkward conversations, no waiting in line at the pharmacy. BlueChew's tablets are made in the USA and prepared and shipped direct to your door in a discreet package. That's right. No one has to know that you're getting BlueChew's unique chewable tablets in the mail. But hey, I'm saying, you know, if you're open for business, if you're getting these and you're opening up shop and you're taking on all comers, as it were. I think I saw a movie like that once. Then maybe you just want to let them know, hey, we got BlueChew in the building. We're ready for it. And if you are looking to get it, come a knocking over my way. Just paint that on your garage. Maybe don't actually. You just paint that on your garage door and see what happens next. You know, that's always how I've handled my business. You know, you just put up flyers in the neighborhood, backs blown out every Thursday, 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., and just, see what happens. You know, that's the power of BlueChew, is it makes it so you can be ready whenever. If you have to be ready Thursday, 6 a.m., BlueChew. BlueChew is there for you. BlueChew wants you to have better sex. Discover your options at BlueChew.com. Chew it and do it. And hey, there's a special deal right now. Try BlueChew for free when you use the promo code Jeff at checkout. Pay just $5 in shipping. That's BlueChew.com. Promo code Jeff to receive your first month for free. Visit BlueChew.com for more details and important safety information. And we thank BlueChew for sponsoring the podcast. Okay, we're back. Let's talk about some video games. XDefiant. This beta ran for a little over a week, and I got into it. I guess it was Friday, Thursday night, something like that. I realized, like, you could do. There's like a whole Twitch drop thing, and so I opened a tab on my browser to a Twitch page, and then walked away, and then came back, and I had a code for the beta. And if you don't remember, this was the game that was at one point originally Tom Clancy's XDefiant, and it had this weird, they were like, it's like a punk rock mosh pit, but a video game. It was like this whole thing that they were going for. And it's a Call of Duty-esque first-person shooter. In fact, some of the folks working on the game have Call of Duty experience. Mark Rubin, who was primarily known, was affiliated with the Call of Duty prior to this, is kind of one of the leads. What is his exact title here? He's an executive producer on the game, and he was previously an EP on Call of Duty. So, it's interesting thing. This game feels like it has undergone a lot of changes over the last, it feels like a year or more since they announced it. I know they've run kind of more closed betas in the past. This is probably the closest they've gotten to an open beta yet. And it feels like the game has undergone quite a lot of changes. For starters, they dropped the Tom Clancy name. But the idea here is that you're kind of picking factions, and it is, the factions are coming from a variety of Ubisoft games, but not all of them are Clance related. So you can play as the DedSec faction. You can play as the Third Echelon faction from Splinter Cell. Now, that doesn't mean Sam Fisher's in the game. It just means, like, here are some spies, basically. No rabbits yet. Yeah, but it needs to go a little further in this direction. It's like the enemy faction from The Division, who are all garbage men who like to burn things. That's a faction. There's a faction from Far Cry in there. And anyway, what they've done is they've kind of built sort of like a hero shooter where you have an ability and an ult. They have done that, and they've done that across factions. So when you play as the fucking Splinter Cell people, then your ability is that you can turn, you have like active camo, like stealth camo, turn invisible for 10 seconds, and then there's a 30-second cooldown on that. And when you fill up your ult and pop that, it draws you can see enemies through walls, basically, for some chunk of time. And the DedSec faction from Watch Dogs, they can disrupt all the other teams so that they can't activate their abilities for some length of time, which is sort of like the DDoS in current Call of Duty. It's they're playtesting it with like 5 of different objective-based modes. They don't have team deathmatch in the current beta, but I assume that's just, they probably want to test out their stuff. But it has domination and hardpoint. They call it something different. It also has a mode where you're escorting a payload. And so it's like they took the Call of Duty style of movement and shooting and whatever else, and then tried to build characters that were a little more in the vein of Overwatch, but also you are still building a gun loadout like Call of Duty with guns and attachments, and all of that stuff looks very like dated Call of Duty, like not current. It's like the percentages plus and minus looks like they ripped it right out of Black Ops Cold War or Vanguard. Like it looks very directly lifted out of that, where it's like, this is 15% to this and minus 5% to this. And you're like, that's not how I want to view this information. But okay. There are interesting things about it because the maps themselves are also coming from different franchises around the UB verse. I don't know. So you've got like the fake Google from Watch Dogs. There's a map that's set in that office. There's kind of more of a Far Cry-ish kind of looking map. They've just basically they have one that looks like it came out of the Division. And so like that's kind of cool. Like the maps themselves are kind of nice. Yes, Noodle is in the game. Yes, I forgot the name of it, but yes, Lacuna Coil. It is Noodle, Nudle. And on paper, it's like they kind of built something that you look at and go like, yeah, okay, you're kind of checking most of the boxes here of what a Call of Duty game might do. But the feel of it feels very off to me across the board. And I'm trying to, like it shouldn't just feel like a Call of Duty game because Call of Duty already exists, right? Like if all the comparisons were like, well, this doesn't feel enough like Call of Duty, then that's pointless, right? Because you could say that about any game, and that's dumb. But I think the issue is that all of it feels incredibly budget. It all feels very cheap to me. And there's something about the character movement and the mantling and the animations there and the way the aiming feels. They've got a ton of options, like current Call of Duty. You can go in there and be like, I need a negative S curve and, kind of change the way your right stick is going to move and the way the auto aim is going to kind of generally work. And so I fiddled with that a bunch, and I don't like the shooting. There's a weird, right now, the time to kill is interesting because they, generally speaking, it feels like enemies take more shots to go down, but also that headshots feel more powerful. So it kind of creates this additional, it's a skill bonus thing, right? If you're landing headshots, you're going to get an even greater benefit than you probably would in Call of Duty because the body shots in this game don't do like as much damage as other games of this sort, I guess is what I'll say. But like comparing it to Call of Duty, I guess. Zaki says the shooting feels like it was a third-person shooter when they started, and that's yes. There's like aspects of this game that just feel cobbled together in a sense, or like there's something about it that doesn't feel cohesive. It doesn't feel good. The movement, I think, just. Again, it feels very cheap. It feels like one of those also ran... The thing that I hit upon and finally kind of... As I was streaming it last week and as I was playing some of it, was that it reminded me a lot of Rogue Company, which is high-res, free-to-play, third-person shooter. And that also I was like, you know what? Rogue Company seems like it's significantly more fun than this. With Rogue Company, I was kind of surprised by it. It was kind of almost in spite of it. I was like, hey, this is actually pretty good. Like, it's janky and, there's a lot of free-to-play trappings in this that are just kind of blah. But there's still a pretty solid game in here, especially for a free-to-play game. This is actually all right. And XDefiant feels like it's kind of like that, but not as good. Or like that. It's like that, but since it is more directly... They're not shying away from the comparisons to Call of Duty here. Like there's a tweet from Mark Rubin. So, and he's been, like they've all been out there talking about the game during the beta, and they've been in people's Twitch chat, and like they're trying to be very like forward about their interactions with the community and everything. They ended up extending the beta until today because they were like, the servers were fucked, man. We want to, we had 1 million people play it and we want to make sure that we can test some stuff. Like the progression was broken, so they just unlocked everything for the beta. You know, they just, you know, they had to react to some things over the course of the beta, and they were, it seemed like they were pretty good about communicating that. But I guess, like, you know, this to me is indicative of the questions they've been getting, or the kind of where they're at with it, because this is something I thought about the game, and then I was like, well, if they just did this, then it would be shameless or something. But like, here's a tweet from Mark Rubin, says, "Hey all, we don't currently have any plans for kill streaks, but what if we made a mode where 3 kills got you your ability and 7 got you your ultra, or something along those lines?" And then, you know, people reacted to that kind of positively or negatively, and but I guess, like, my feeling in playing XDefiant wasn't necessarily, hey, this has to have kill streaks. It was more, this needs to have something else going on. Kill streaks are one way of having an additional thing going on. It's like, oh, now there's a UAV. Oh, now there's a fucking helicopter overhead that I have to deal with. Or, you know, like additional situations that you find yourself in, right? And I mean, to answer his actual question, I don't think a mode where you get your ability, because I don't think any of the abilities or ultras are actually interesting. From what I played of it, it was just like, yeah, I don't know. These are just not that fun to use. You know, kill streaks are fun to use because it feels like you are, especially the later ones, you are pushing a button and fucking people over and going, ha 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 ha. Whereas this is like, okay, well, now I can emit a mist that heals people around me, and now they have 200 health instead of 120, or they have, you know, it's sort of like when Call of Duty decided they needed to have ults in the game and had individual characters that would be like, well, when this one's meter fills up, when like Black Ops 3 or whatever the fuck it was, when this one's meter fills up, you can pull this trigger and then she gets a big gun. Or this guy can rewind time, you know, and like just shit that's like, yeah, I don't know. Like on an individual character level, that's just kind of like annoying more than anything else. And so this just kind of feels like that, but then without the kill streak stuff on top of it. And it's just, I don't know, it feels empty. The game just doesn't feel like it has enough going on. And that's probably the most damning thing I could say about it. That, and just like, I think the feel of it is off. Like it's off in a way. It feels, like I said, it just feels very budget. It just feels very, and this is the game, right? I mean, I think this game is going to be free to play when it finally does come out, but it feels free to play, parentheses, derogatory. You know what I mean? Like, you play it and you just go like, oh, this feels like low budget. This feels like, the other game I kind of keep going back to for whatever reason, because my brain is broken, is a downloadable PS3 game that I think was also maybe got started on mobile, and it is called Heavy Fire Afghanistan. And it's like a rail shooter. It's not really the same thing, but like aspects of those Heavy Fire games kind of feel like shameless, crappy Call of Duty. Like they saw that Call of Duty was popular and they said, let's make something like that. And there used to be a lot more games like that, you know, back in the 360 days when, or, you know, in the kind of, you know, there just felt like there were a lot more games that were chasing that style of competitive shooter. When Call of Duty first got big, you know, kind of in the late 2000s, the early teens, the early 10s, whatever you want to say, that stuff just felt like it was coming from every direction. Everyone was like, we've got a shooter, and this one you can travel through time and there's dinosaurs. And, or, you know, Bet on Soldier, which is like, that one's more of a Halo than a Call of Duty, I guess. But, you know, just like it feels like a knockoff. It doesn't feel like it's carving out its own identity. It feels like, here's some folks who were associated with Call of Duty leading a team to make a game that is like not Call of Duty, and but is still as close to Call of Duty as they can get. And in fact, the vibe of some of their community interaction and some of the way they seem to be positioning the game is like, in some ways they feel like they are chasing people who are down on Call of Duty right now for one reason or another, where they're like, oh, the movement isn't fun enough. It used to you'd be able to do all this cool stuff and, you know, slide and jitter around like an idiot and all this other shit. And you can't do that anymore. And they're dumbing the game down for idiots. And it seems like they're trying to like sweep in and try to appeal to those players. Again, I don't want to have another fucking skill-based matchmaking conversation, but like they're out there catering to the crowd of fucking idiots that are out there going, skill-based matchmaking is fucking terrible, and I don't want to have to play the game well, even though I'm good at it. I want to be able to ruin the experience for newer players. Why can't I do that? Why won't you let me do that? Which is the worst. That's the worst crowd to be chasing for a game. That's like it's almost embarrassing that if those people are happy, you're probably fucking up with your game. So I think that's the stuff with XDefiant where I just look at it and just go like, man, I don't know what they're carving out with this game, but it doesn't feel like enough. I guess that's my kind of big take on it is that it feels a little too close to Call of Duty, but worse, you know, and in a world where you can still get Call of Duty, and granted, Call of Duty is still a full price game. And so, you know, if this is coming out and it's free to play and you can't afford Call of Duty and you don't want to play Warzone, again, because that is free, but if you want to play the competitive multiplayer style shooter that Call of Duty used to be known for, then, you know, then this is a free to play one of those. And so I guess there's potentially still value there, but I just look at it and go like, none of this feels good enough to stand out. Like that's kind of my general feeling on it, is you just look at it and go like, I don't know, the shooting, the aiming, the feel of the character movement, the mantling, just the way it all kind of comes together feels very kind of low budget. And I don't know that there will be a lot of people who want to do this, I guess. But at the same time, you know, a Rogue Company keeps on trucking, and you know, so I think, you know, there's probably some kind of niche for this sort of game, maybe. I don't know. I just look at it and go like, this, none of this seems good enough, and maybe they'll get there. I mean, obviously this is a closed beta, and I don't even think they even have a release date. I don't even think they do. So, you know, it seems like that they've got a lot of leeway to keep fucking around with it, but also it seems like they've been fucking around with it for a real long time. And if this is what they're showing after all that time, you just go like, I don't know if you guys have found a real hook for this yet. Because I don't think giving characters abilities and ults like they were Overwatch characters, I don't think that's enough. I don't think that adds like that doesn't leave me going like, yes, this is what Call of Duty has been missing. Or because again, Call of Duty did have ults for a while, and I think them getting away from that is one of the smarter things they've done in the past, you know, whatever, 5 years, however long it's been since that stuff was out there. Jesus, that stuff was just, they were moving in such the wrong direction back then. So yeah, it's just a weird case. But like, again, I think that like the maps seem good enough. The idea of we're taking maps and concepts from across this band of Ubisoft games and characters and so on, I think that stuff is cool. I think that is interesting, and I would love to see them get weird with that. Like, that's, you know, maybe you don't put in the rabbits because, you know, maybe that's kind of sending the wrong message or whatever. But like, that game should have, I don't know, modern day Templars and Assassins in it. Like, what other Ubisoft people could you put in this without necessarily putting in named characters, right? Because none of these characters are like, it's not Sam Fisher. It's like fucking Spy Lady, and then here's Spy Dude. and then here's another spy dude, and then here's a lady from Far Cry 6, but not the player character, or not the, like there's, so like what other, the just random characters from Just Dance, sure. The cars from Trackmania, why not? But then I figured that they eventually get to a point where they're like, hey, now that we're selling skins, you absolutely can buy Sam Fisher now. And if you want to unlock Sam Fisher, you can do this, or it's the last tier on the battle pass, or it's $25 or whatever, right? Like I think you probably do get there. It would make good business sense for them to do that, I think. And then you put Desmond in the game. Right? I mean, you put fucking Aiden Pierce? Is that his name? Adam Pierce. No. Yes, Aiden yes. Aiden Pierce. But first you put in his iconic hat. And make that an unlockable, that's level 85 on the battle pass, and then if you want to buy the full character to wear the hat, then another 25 bones. Put Shaun White in it. Why not? I'm sitting here trying to think, like, who are people that Ubisoft is affiliated with? Yes, Michael Jackson of the Michael Jackson Experience, of course. Why wouldn't you put him in there? Could you put zombies from Zombie U in there? I guess, like, Ubisoft doesn't really have that many, like, memorable named character. Like, you could do a Far Cry villains, like put Voss in it, I guess. Well, like, the Far Cry faction they have in there is just like, it's Libertad, and every faction has their own announcer, and so like in some ways the most the most iconic part of picking a faction ends up being that you get a different announcer, and so the announcer is the one with the personality, because otherwise it's just like three characters. It's like, this guy's got a Hawaiian shirt, and you're like, oh, okay, sure, Hawaiian shirt. You could put the Prince of Persia in there. I mean, if you want to like cross timelines and not have them all have to look like modern characters, then you just straight up put fucking old-timey assassins in it, except they have fucking scars and fucking MP5s or whatever else. Like, just do it. Just fucking do it. Just do it. Just go all the way. And all the way within reason. Or go all the way, and yes, put Rayman in it. And just put Rayman in it. Have a Rayman faction. What about the Mario side of Mario and Rabbids? Could we get like a Mario and Luigi, and because we get them in there? No, they're not available. Oh, weird. What about the space characters from that Skylanders, the one that had Star Fox on the Nintendo version? Starlink? Was that Starlink? Could put the Just Dance characters in there. Put the Tanner from Driver. What else? What else you got? I don't know. But that seems like the potentially most interesting part of that game, which is kind of a, maybe not the best place for them to be, because it just the gameplay just feels a little flat to me. I don't know. We'll see. I'm interested to see where they take it, because again, the other thing I'll say is that from reading what they've been saying over the course of the beta and some of the feedback, or the way they've been reacting to some of the feedback, it really feels like that a lot of this is pretty malleable. And at least not in terms of like the core of it is what it is, but in terms of like, what if we did a mode where it did this? Like, sure, yeah, we could put in a mode that does that, I guess. We could do this. Like it feels like they're very much like, what would you want to play? What's a thing that would make you, what's the thing? Is there something I can say here on Twitter that will keep this game from getting canceled like all the other Ubisoft games, shooters lately? What can we do here? Ding Chavez. Yes. Put all the rainbow people in there. Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting, but I just, what they've got out there right now doesn't feel like it is what it needs to be in order to be a lasting game. It feels like something that if they put this out right now and it had like 2 more modes in it, and they had the standard like, oh, in this season we're introducing these new factions, but like this, if this was the general structure of it, I'd give it a year and a half, maybe. Like it'd make it longer than Hyperscape, but not. I don't think it would be a lasting release. I think it would be another one of these Ubisoft games that they put out and go like, oh yeah, that thing. Anyway, now we're gonna we're sunsetting XDefiant. Yeah, just doesn't seem like the thing that would catch on right now. Which I don't mean that in a. I'm trying not to be shitty about it. Like this competitive landscape for these types of games, so on and so forth. You just look at it and go like, yeah, this seems like a game people will play for a little while, as a diversion from the other thing, and then the other thing will come out, and then they will go back to playing the other thing, and that'll be that. There was also man, oh man. Street Fighter 6 is about a month away. It's a month and change. June 2nd is when that game is out. That is, let's call it like 5 weeks or so. I could not be more excited about that game, I think. Capcom had a little half-hour video that they ran talking about kind of the world tour mode, the big single-player mode, and kind of showing off some additional features and so on. And it's basically everything I wanted that to be. Previously, the betas have focused on online play and had a handful of characters in it and not the full roster and so on and so forth. And that stuff has been massively entertaining. That has been, I have been trying to put this game out of my head for most of the year because it's like it's like, oh, it's months away, it's so far off. It's been almost a year now since, I guess like I played it in June. I first played it about a year out from its release date. And ever since then, I have been sort of like, geez, I don't want to keep thinking about this game because I am fucking obsessed with it, man. Holy shit, it looks good. God damn it, man. Everything they're showing on this game just looks absolutely incredible to me. And the world tour mode, where you are basically using the character you create in the character creator, which if you played in the beta, they had you create a character that you could run around the battle hub in, and you can dress up and do other stuff. There's a character creator and you're going into this world tour mode, but also you fight as that character in that mode. And so they're like, oh, by the way, you'll unlock gear that has stats on it. And you're like, oh, okay. And your character can learn different moves from the different Street Fighter. And this is stuff that, they've shown in some of the different trailers and whatever else, right? And gosh, it is so intensely exciting. And seeing these awful looking created characters learning meaningful Street Fighter moves and then beating up other created characters in that, like, you can walk up to a mime and fucking uppercut him, and that starts a fight. There's a way to go like, hey, let's start a fight and start it the fair way, but you can also just fucking walk up and hit the fucking uppercut button, which is like, it's like L2, R2 and triangle. You can set it however you want it, and just fucking hit him, bop him, and then that starts a fight. And it seems incredibly good, and I beat the shit out of that mime, and fuck that mime. Yes, you fight refrigerators. There seems like there's a bonus stage where you beat up a big truck. And just, I really want to see what these created characters look like at the end of this mode, because then you can also take those, you can build created characters. I don't know if it's your exact character from the World Tour mode or what, but you can fight as those created characters against other humans and other created characters, which is going to make for some pretty awesome moments, I think. And boy, I hope that none of that is balanced. I hope it's just a disaster. Because whatever, they can balance the real game, right? That's where they got to care. Here, it should just be weird, and they should balance it within reason. But yeah, someone in the chat saying yes, that like because when you create your character, you can make the arms long or short or do all these other things, and then that's going to affect your hitboxes. And so I guess you should probably make a small character with long arms, I guess. I don't know. Is that balanced? Who knows? Like the idea of people out there min-maxing created characters to create the fucking like I want to create Gold Rock from fucking Fighting Masters. Like yeah, I just it's so exciting. It just looks so chaotic and so messy. And then also it'll have the full real game, which is, I feel like the beta has already established that game is super fucking fun. And those characters feel good, and the systems in that game are really nice and everything there. So so this half hour, they just kind of detailed some more of that World Tour mode and kind of uncovered little bits and pieces of that. They announced the first year of DLC characters, which is kind of one character per quarter. Hakan is not one of those characters, so who cares? It's like it's Ed and it's Akuma and it's Rashid, and then Aki is the other character. Is that the ADI AKI? I forget. Yeah, Aki. And yeah, oh boy. It looks fantastic. I wish that I could be playing that game right now. I wish I was flying somewhere to see that game right now, but instead I am here. But yeah, that game's not far off, and there is no game. There's no announced game, I guess I should say, right now that I am looking forward to more than that. Because that obviously that's out very soon. That's close to, that's game has to be, if it ain't gold, it's real close, because it's a month and it's like 5 weeks, and it just, yeah, I don't know. Every time I've seen that game, it's been like, oh, this is really neat. The demo itself is a little thin, I'll say. But the demo does let you get your hands on the character creator, and you should have fun with that because it's bad. You could create a lot of bad shit with the character creator, and we kind of knew this from previous rounds of the beta, but something about creating that character and then using it to fight a mime and other such characters is fantastic. So yeah, give that demo a look. It's on PlayStation platforms right now. I think it goes everywhere else tomorrow. So go ahead and give that a look. But gosh, I can't. I am so fucking excited for that game. And so what a great place for them to be, man. Holy shit. It could not be more night and day between what that game seems to be doing and what they are trying to do with that game. And who they are trying to appeal to with that game. And then you think about where Street Fighter V was when it launched and where Street Fighter V got to over time, and the focus of Street Fighter V, and really how Street Fighter V feels like a game that really narrowed the fan base for Street Fighter in some ways by virtue of them only really focusing on competitive multiplayer. We've talked about this at length, obviously. I'm not going to rehash that whole thing, but just a night and day change. And I'm so happy to, like, that's, sometimes you need to put a game in someone else's hands. Sometimes you need a team led by someone else, fresh ideas, whatever you want to, this is sometimes you need some fresh ideas at the very top. And, I think some of these folks have worked on Street Fighter before, But I think it's a mix, right? The game comes off as a reaction to like, hey, we totally ignored a lot of players with Street Fighter V when it comes to like having good single player stuff. And it really feels like they looked at the landscape and they looked at, like someone sat down and did a case study or something and said like, why the fuck do people buy Mortal Kombat the way that why does that game sell the way it does? What are we fucking up over here at Street Fighter Incorporated? How are we fucking this up so bad? Look at, I assume Tekken, I don't know what the sales on Tekken were. But like Mortal Kombat, like you look at it and go like, it's got a big meaty story mode. It's got a thing you can do that makes it feel like you got your money's worth, even if you don't get online and play other players. Like there's a lot in that game for you to do, even if you don't even know what the fucking FGC is. And Street Fighter, as I feel like as I've been saying for years now, Street Fighter should be right there with them. It's Street Fighter. It's iconic characters that everyone knows and everyone fucking loves and know about even casually. Because if they had been playing games for a good long time, you know who the fuck a Ryu is, who the fuck a Chun-Li is. Like that game should have mass appeal. And this game feels like it is at least moving in that direction. I'll be really curious to see how well it does and what the appeal is for players who are not, like already dyed in the wool fighting game players and everything else. Like the more casual fan, this game should be able to appeal to them without alienating the high end tournament players. Like it's big enough to do both. And looking at what they've shown so far, it feels like something where they're trying to make it happen, and we'll see how it goes. We're gonna take one more final break here, and then I'm gonna come back. We'll talk about a couple more games, and we'll get into the news. How about it? All right, cool. Keeping cool while you sleep. That's what it's all about. Whether you want to get more fit, be a better parent, get more done at work, that is the thing that can help you better sleep. With Miracle Made sheets, you can tap into the power of self-cooling temperature regulation, which has been shown to improve deep sleep quality by over 20%. Did you know that your temperature at night can have one of the greatest impacts on your sleep quality? It's true. Miracle Made's sheets are silver infused and inspired by NASA. That's right. These are thermo-regulating sheets designed to keep you at the perfect temperature all night long so you get better sleep every night. And that silver infusion means that they prevent up to 99.7% of bacterial growth, leaving them to stay cleaner and fresher 3 times longer than other sheets. That means they stink less, which can come in handy. Hey, if you are a stink person, you know who you are. If you are like a smelly sleeper, if you stink out of bed, if you're the sort of person that you wake up and you're like, what is that? That can't be me. Oh boy. Then these silver infused sheets are right up your alley. And it wouldn't, hey, if these sheets were garbage, then it would be like, oh, it's silver infused, but it feels like I'm rubbing a burlap sack on my flesh. It wouldn't matter. But no, we're in luck because these have luxurious comfort and quality. Miracle sheets are luxuriously comfortable without the high price tag of other luxury brands and feel as nice, if not nicer, than bed sheets used by some 5-star hotels. Go to trymiracle.com/Jeff to try Miracle Made sheets today. And with Mother's and Father's Day right around the corner, this is the perfect way to give someone you love the gift of better and more luxurious sleep. Save over 40% and be sure to use the promo code Jeff at checkout to save even more and get 3 free towels. Miracle is so confident in their product, it's backed with a 30-day money-back guarantee. If you are not 100% satisfied, you will get a full refund. Upgrade your deep sleep to get even deeper with Miracle Made. Go to trymiracle.com/Jeff and use the code Jeff to claim your free 3-piece towel set and save over 40% off. Again, that's trymiracle.com/Jeff to treat yourself. And thanks to Miracle Made for sponsoring the podcast. Okay, we're back. Let's also talk about Disney Speedstorm here. This came out. It is in a manner of early access. This is another game that will be a free-to-play game someday, but they are charging for it right now. So it's like if you buy a Founders Pack, then you can get access to the game immediately, and eventually, I guess it'll be kind of open to a more free thing. It's a Mario Kart type of game, but with Disney characters. And we there was a beta for this that came out months ago that you may remember. I played some of that. I also played some of it last week. If you've seen that, that's on YouTube. Both those are on YouTube. And it's a very bright and flashy, well-running game. It's on PC. It's on consoles and stuff now too. But I've been playing it on PC. And it just has this ridiculous like Disney dubstep remix soundtrack that is perfect. It is corny in all of the right ways. It is like it's I guess I would say it slaps, but not, I mean, I don't know. It's kind of fantastic. The soundtrack is probably the best part about the game. I'm not much for Mario Kart. I never have been. I like the original Mario Kart for the Super Nintendo. And that's about it. It was that, and then there was Crash Team Racing. And I was like, this is pretty good for as far as not Mario Karts go. And Disney Speedstorm seems pretty good as far as not Mario Karts go in terms of gameplay. And, you know, it's the same type deal, right? You're picking up power-ups. There are shortcuts and stuff on the track, and there are things happening along the way, right? You are, you know, like the different characters have different kind of ultimate abilities. Belle from Beauty and the Beast can make a bunch of furniture appear on the track, which is like a very dumb sentence to say. But yeah, it's but also it's a free to play game, and it's very it's got 3 or 4 currencies to upgrade the characters. You need shards, plus you need items, plus you need that. You can unlock crew slots on your racer, but then the crew has to be so affiliated with the racer itself. You can't just equip. You can unlock Orange Bird as a crew member, but you cannot equip Orange Bird on any character in the game. Only on characters that are affiliated with Walt Disney World, whoever those are. And so Belle can only equip Beauty and the Beast people like the clock guy, and I imagine other pieces of furniture. Yeah, so it is a game rife with loot boxes. There's a loot box that is like percentage chance, like they list the odds because that's the thing you're supposed to do now. And it's just this long list of shit, and you're just like, you got a 1% chance of getting this. You got a 1.5% chance of getting this. You 3% chance you might get this. And you just look at it all, and it's just your eyes fucking glaze over. You're just like, I don't want to fucking think about this. This is insane. The number of different just things you can unlock and equip and upgrade, and you know, you're getting cart parts also that you can theoretically buy, and some of that stuff is just direct purchase. It's not stuff you're getting out of a loot box. But like, there are other characters in the game that I don't currently have unlocked, and there's nothing in the store that's just like, here, buy this character. It's like, oh, well, I don't know, maybe if you open these boxes and get this, and maybe you can get some of this, and it's too much. It's just too much. And I guess like what I would say, it is specifically maybe too much for a kid's game. I'm thinking about this specific scenario, folks, as a father. My daughter likes Disney princesses. Not ashamed to say it. It's just how it went. The power of the brand was too strong. Despite me saying like, oh man, sure would be nice if we weren't into this fucking corporate hellhole of she's seen Frozen. I'm going to say the Frozen films 1 and 2, and perhaps some of the side stuff they've done. I'm going to say 300 times minimum. she's probably seen Beauty and the Beast 50, 70 times. Cinderella, probably up there 100 times, something like that. She loves this shit. And she loves Belle, most of all, which is nice because I was able to choose and unlock Belle off of the bat. But at some point, they will probably put a Frozen character in there. And then that will be something. So I'm envisioning the scenario where she sees those characters, because the other characters in the races are characters that you might not have unlocked because you're obviously like playing online against other players or playing in offline races or whatever. And there was nothing in there that lets you just purchase the individual characters one off. And in a scenario where my daughter happens to see this game, and I have not shown it to her yet, and I am worried about doing that now. In a world where they eventually put an Anna or an Elsa from Frozen into that game, if she is playing as Belle and she sees that one of them is available, she will say, I want to be that one. And if the scenario there is that you have to open loot boxes until you get a character as a rare drop for 1% chance out of the loot box. You don't get dupes out of the loot box, but there's 345 items that could be in the loot box. She's going to fucking throw a massive tantrum if I tell her, no, sorry, you can't. You can't play as Anna or Elsa. Even though they're right there. Even though you see them right there. That's a no-win scenario. Obviously that's something that, you know, if you really want to think of the darkest pattern of them all in a free-to-play game, that is that I just look at that and go like, I can't really show this to my kids at this time. That's the stance I have to take, because Belle right now is the only character that seems to be in the game that she would be interested in, but that will change. And so if she gets really into it, I can't allow her to see it. That's probably the right answer. That's probably the right move for me right now. And that's probably not a good place for them to be as far as a game and getting that out to people, right? Where if this is the, you know, if this is the situation, then it's, you know, and if it's not the part where it's free to play, it's all that, like if it was available for direct purchase, I think that would be a major change. I'd be like, okay, yeah, this is a solvable problem. You can buy a skin and okay, cool. Like that to me would be the change they could make. That'll be like, okay, I'll show this to you. But that's where that stands right now. It's kind of a deal breaker, I guess I would say with that. So I don't know. We'll see. You know, when they roll out more characters, maybe they'll be like, oh, hey, right. We need to be able to sell the characters individually. Like they, you know, if they want to have loot boxes, they can. I don't think that's the right way to go. I think that so many games have moved away from this shit. Like it's the game just has a very mobile, and I think it is on phones. But it's got a mobile. It's from Gameloft, you know, the mobile phone people, and it has that vibe for sure. But yeah, we'll see. I don't know how they intend to do characters long term. But that's the sort of thing that you just look at and go like, okay, this is misguided. There's a way to do monetization that doesn't lead to, because I look at this and go, and the answer isn't the answer is to just like, oh well, we're just not going to play that game if that's the way they're going to do it. So I don't know. The other stuff, you know, it's like, here's a license plate, here's this, that. You're just like, yeah, I don't know, you know. I guess. But that individual situation where it's like, it's not a problem you can push a button to solve. You have to push a button and then you might have to push it 300 times. That's, nah. Nope. Not going to allow that in the house, I think. But the game itself seems good for what it is. Again, like, as far as like the Mario Kart knockoff thing, like it's that stuff feels like relatively well handled. From a gameplay perspective, the tracks are like interesting, and there's one that like you burst through a movie screen into like black and white old school Disney kind of Steamboat Willie, like that kind of vibe. And that's a really fun twist. Like, I think that stuff's kind of cool. And it has auto driving. Like, clearly they want kids to play it because they've got like steering assists and other heavy shit in there like that. But you just kind of look at it and go like, if you're gonna have to wait and see on this, because I don't want to create that situation, right? Where it's just like, here's a thing she wants and I cannot make it happen. So yeah. Why don't we get into the news? Atari has purchased Bubsy. Now let's get to email. Atari, according to Eurogamer, Atari has acquired the rights to over 100 IPs, including Bubsy and Hardball. It looks like they picked up Accolade. From the looks, if you're saying Bubsy and you're saying Hardball, I'm going to guess that you bought Accolade. They have, so they have indeed purchased the Accolade trademark along with Infogrames and Microprose. Atari made a purchase recently, and they said that they got the rights to Berserk and the original arcade game, not the anime. Sorry. They never in their initial press release, they never put out the full list of IPs. Now, someone did eventually ask them to, like, hey, what else did you buy? And with the Stern IP acquisition, it looked like they acquired a bunch of stuff from Stern, and so Berserk and Frenzy were in there along with some other stuff that is just not as well known as those games were. And so this is a similarly short story where they haven't put out the full list of IP. The announcement did mention, according to Eurogamer, Bubsy, Demolition Racer, Hardball, 1942 Pacific Air War, F-117A, and the F-14 Air Combat Series. So that's, I imagine, stuff from Microprose. Microprose also, that's stuff like Airborne Ranger, which is that's F-15 Strike Eagle, like really old action and simulator games, really old simulators. Microprose would go on to make a lot more stuff. Microprose has been back lately trying to make stuff. Infogram, that's like I think they own Alone in the Dark, and that's where Demolition Racer would come from. Infogram is funny. This is really weird, the idea of Atari acquiring the Infogram portfolio, because Infogram bought the Atari portfolio back in the Dreamcast days. When stuff like when Hasbro was putting out like Frogger, like somewhere in that vein somewhere. Oh, is Alone in the Dark not part of this? Yeah, they end up at the Embracer Group. So that's the other thing. Some of this stuff got spun off, right? So Accolade are the innovators. They are the original owners of the Test Drive IP, but that has long since been sold off. To whoever is making that one that game that's never going to come out. What is that game? Test Drive Solar Crown. Test Drive Unlimited Solar Crown. Nacon apparently is doing that with developers over at Kiloton, which are the WRC developers. So maybe that'll come out. I know that got big delayed, and they really haven't said a lot about Test Drive, so it's just very easy to look at that and go like, that's never going to happen. Yes, Law of the West for the Commodore 64. Do they own the Law of the West IP? Because fuck Red Dead whatever, Revolver, Redemption, whatever you got. If you've got the Law of the fucking West IP, that's the cowboy game. Fuck Gun. Fuck Lead and Gold. Fuck Call of Juarez. Fuck fucking Red Dead, whatever. Law of the West. Now that's a goddamn video game. That's a cow. Fuck Outlaw. Though this is Atari. I mean, Atari probably does own Outlaw as well. Gun.smoke. Get bent. I never thought I would say that about Gun.smoke, but here we are. Law of the West is an amazing. The Law of the West is interactive fiction at its finest. And I won't hear any arguments to the contrary. I'll play Law of the West again. I'll do it, man. I'll stream Law of the West. All right, man. All right. That's writing this down. Next Hall of Fame entry, probably Law of the West. So yeah, Microprose, Infogram, Accolade, but I think Infogram had picked up the Accolade stuff, so maybe anyway, they claim that they have picked up over 100 things, and this is stuff that they're Atari is becoming, I feel like Atari is becoming more interesting month by month. When we think about, this is the same Atari that was doing the hotel thing and the NFT scams and whatever else. I think they're still running some kind of side company that is working on some kind of NFT scam stuff. But like the core of it that puts out something like Atari 50 and Jeff Minter's Aka R and so on and so forth. And they keep putting out new versions of old games. And I think I don't think those games are particularly good. We talked about Caverns of Mars most recently, but they did like Black Widow, they did Missile Command. There's been a batch of like Missile Command Recharged and like all these other kind of classic Atari franchises that they're trying to make new versions, whether it's on mobile or not. And I don't think that those efforts have been especially successful. I think in the case of Caverns of Mars, I think it's too far of a departure to the original game. I think that the thing that they set upon is not especially fun and does not control especially well either. But this is the same Atari that put out that console. Remember that thing? The Atari VCS or whatever that's out in my garage somewhere? Like, they put that thing out. And so, like, it feels like Atari was in a real hole, and they seem like they're probably still in something of a hole, but less of one. I don't know, like I said, like, they keep acquiring IP. In recapping the announcement, Eurogamer says that, their goal, the Atari says its goal is to expand digital and physical distribution of the original titles, including bringing some of them to consoles for the first time, and also potentially creating new games based on freshly acquired IP as well. They're also planning to explore brand and merchandising collaborations, with Matt Wales over at Eurogamer speculating that if you've ever wanted a t-shirt with Bubsy's face on it, your dreams might finally be about to come true. I think the best thing that could happen here, the sickest, darkest thing that could happen here is a lot of Bubsy merchandise. Hobotech in the chat says, can Atari buy Tommy Tallarico? I want him making music again. What do you mean again? Did he ever? I feel like every week it's like, oh, by the way, that he didn't make this either, is the news. I don't know what that whole thing is up in the air now, right? I don't. When the story was just like, oh, by the way, Earthworm Jim, it turns out he didn't do that either. With this, he turns out, and who knows, right? That is just what people are out there saying. But Anyway, I think if the end result of this is not that they make another Bubsy game, but merely that they put out a bunch of fucking Bubsy merch, that would be amazing. That would be incredible if they just said like, oh yeah, no, we got Bubsy t-shirts, we got Bubsy speaker hats, we got a Bubsy hotel that we're working on. We've licensed Bubsy out. We're finally turning that pilot into a full-on TV show. We're very excited about it. Straight to Netflix. Yeah, if this just leads to them licensing Bubsy out for merchandise and other non-game related things, that would be amazing. Because we don't need another game. But you know, like that's, hey, cool, right? I mean, if we think about like those last couple of Bubsy games were like, weren't they like tax scams or something? Like that game had the vibe of fraud. And so I, you know, Atari may be involved in NFTs in some way, but they also seem to be putting out products that seem like products and not straight up fraud. And so what if they made another Bubsy? What if they made another Bubsy? Here's the the truly scary thing is, what if it was actually good? What if someone sat down and made a good Bubsy game? Bubsy, there you go. Fuck, man. Yes. Uma Semper says Bubsy in Fortnite. This is actually the right answer. this is, I don't know if Epic would do it. I don't know. Maybe they're hurting from this Apple judgment and they're a little more willing to work with lesser IPs. But Bubsy in Fortnite would be amazing. That would be an amazing thing for Fortnite to do. I feel like that's missing from Fortnite. Fortnite is perpetually chasing the biggest shit, and they don't leave a lot of room for jokes. You know what I mean? Like, there should be one character per season that gets its way in there that you just go, yeah, okay, sure. Yeah, you put fucking Bubsy in Fortnite. They should reserve some chunk of resources to the fucking goof inclusion of just like, yeah, well, yeah, I don't know. We put Bubsy in there. Fuck you. I think that we should get the folks over at Digital Eclipse should really be working on a Bubsy collection. We're collecting all of the classic Bubsy games. Now that we have a reasonable Jaguar emulator out there, you know, maybe we can make this a reality. Someone in the chat says Bubsy 50. And what if... All right. Hear me out. This probably doesn't make any business sense. So it's a bad idea out of the gate. But what if, sort of like UFO 50, if that ever comes out, you went to 50 different developers and said, make me a Bubsy game. And then you released a bootleg multi-cart style release where everyone made a different Bubsy game and treated it like Bubsy was the biggest thing in the world at some point in the 80s or 90s, because he was, let's face it. But you know, like if you're like, okay, well, if Bubsy was Mario, if Bubsy was truly as big as Mario or Sonic, what would they have done? And so you get your Bubsy puzzle game where it's just a bunch of yarn balls of different colors, you know, your shitty match 3 Bubsy game. Or maybe it's an amazing Bubsy match 3 game, you know? You're making, at some point, you're making a kart racer. At some point, you're making a sequel to Bubsy 3D. Not counting the one that the you know, not counting the art gallery Bubsy 3D sequel. But also, yeah, like what, you know, you're making all of the kind of 16-bit. The what would they do for Mario? Like, is someone making Bubsy Paint? Is someone making a Bubsy pinball game? Maybe like a Bubsy Pachinko with all these yarn balls. Like you could do it. Anyway, 50 different Bubsy games in one collection, and then you shoot a fake documentary about it, like they all existed back then. And you just have all these fake interviews that treat Bubsy like it was the biggest thing ever. You make fucked up, shitty you make like 8-bit Bubsy platformers, and then you make Bubsy All-Stars, which are 16-bit remakes of the 8-bit games. That's what you do. That's what you do with Bubsy. I think that would be way too expensive to fucking do. I think that they're getting that many different micro, because they'd have to be micro games, but like getting that many different developers involved in making all of these things and trying to make all those jokes land, but also trying to make all those jokes land in a way where it's like, hey, this is still playable and actually like good enough to where we want to sell it or whatever. Like that's the product I would make if I were them. If I were involved with Atari, I would be making the joke game that treats Bubsy as if it was actually the biggest franchise in gaming for the last 40 years. And go from there. Stealth game, sure, why not? Why not? I would, I don't know that it actually would be a good game, but if they're acquiring the Microprose IP and assuming that all of that stuff came in, Airborne Ranger was an amazing game when it came out. It was kind of, it looks like a scrolling top-down shooter in the vein of like Commando or Akari Warriors or something, but it is, they attempt to be tactical with it, like it had a lot of keyboard buttons in addition to you moving with the joystick and stuff. And so you could kind of rotate, but also you could hit the space bar to go prone. And there were trenches that you could get in. So you go prone in a trench and you could throw grenades and you had health packs and these other items and bazookas because you would encounter like bunkers and stuff along the way. Like a really, at the time, a very fascinating game to try to it's something you look at and it just looks like Commando or any of those other games, but to try to make that tactical, slower paced, like, hey, don't die because then you're dead. Like you took some damage, you better back off and heal. Use one of your health packs and then go forward or whatever. I think that was always a really interesting idea. I don't know what you would do with it in this day and age because there are plenty of tactical games out there, and also there are plenty of like retro themed kind of scrolling shooters like that. But I don't know that a direct follow up to it would necessarily be great. But that was an awesome game in its day. So I wonder if that's on the list. I would love to see the full list of these. It looks like they haven't necessarily put it out yet, but yeah, I don't know. Hardball. Like, what are you going to make an unlicensed baseball game? Like, Hardball was cool. I assume that means they probably also got like 4th and Inches, which was Accolade's football franchise. But who knows? Who knows? Still, it's interesting. Like, this is a very different approach from the Embracer Group, I guess. Because this all seems like stuff that no one's going to do anything with ever again. And maybe Atari will. Maybe Atari is just like that kind of down. And by down, I mean kind of like down and out a little bit, as well as just like down to do stuff with old IP. That they will find ways to do exciting things with this stuff. You'd like to believe in that. I don't know. But I feel like Atari has not. And I think even Atari, I think Wade Rosen, who's the CEO of Atari, I think has even said in some of these interviews, like, hey, like, yeah, this brand is maybe a little tarnished. We probably need to put out some more stuff to prove that we're serious about it before we can just get out here and say, here's what we're doing. So, yeah, I don't know. Atari's in an interesting place, and they're on the verge of like, they're probably like 2 or 3 good releases away from me going like, huh, okay, they mean business. Right now, it seems like they might, but again, I think a lot of the new stuff, the new old games they've been putting out lately have not been very good. Aka-R is cool. the missile command was all right, but a lot of those, you know, when they did like a new Gravatar and they did some of this other stuff that they have been doing, that stuff's just been, they're missing the mark with it a little too much. Epic has lost in court against Apple again. This was an appeal. They lost the first time, and the appeals court, the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, held up the original ruling, rejecting Epic's claims that the App Store rules, according to MacRumors.com, but also through Bloomberg and some of the other places that have reported on this. Yes, the original ruling. Basically, if you remember, Epic was like, Apple is running a monopoly, and we are going to start just taking money for Fortnite. Remember when they did that? Remember when Epic just said, like, by the way, you can buy stuff in Fortnite for iOS now directly, and then Apple said, fucking what? You signed a thing saying that you knew that those were the rules and that you were not going to do that, and we're going to take you off the store. And they fucking took Fortnite off the fucking App Store. Where it is still not on the App Store, and I believe it is still not on the Google Store anymore, right? Because Google did the same thing because they have the same rules in place. But yeah, the upshot of this is that there was kind of one thing that Epic got through on this lawsuit, and it was the idea of an anti-steering. That Apple basically doesn't let you build an app that says, hey, go to our website if you want to buy stuff, because we don't want to give Apple 30%. Like basically anything that points to an alternative storefront and so on. Apple was like, no, you can't do that because you're deliberately building that so that you don't have to pay us, and that's not okay. So that was kind of the one thing that made it through. And Apple is currently, they issued a statement. Today's decision reaffirms Apple's resounding victory in this case, with 9 of 10 claims having been decided in Apple's favor. For the second time in 2 years, a federal court has ruled that Apple abides by antitrust laws at the state and federal levels. The App Store continues to promote competition, blah, 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 blah. We're proud of its profound contributions to blah, 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 blah. We respectfully disagree with the court's ruling on the one remaining claim under state law and are considering further review. So, who knows? They may actually try to appeal that one thing that didn't go their way, but if not, then that ends up leading to a situation where, you know, you could build an app that then links off somewhere else, which is the first time I encountered that was with the Kindle app, I believe, where Amazon was selling books and they did not sell books inside the app. Instead, it just opened up a web page and you had to log, it opened up Safari basically, and you had to log in there. And if you bought the books there, you could buy them. You know, the Xbox app is the same way, where you can't buy games in the Xbox app because then they would have to give Apple 30%. And they're like, no. And so, you know, that's because of a lot of these App Store rules and everything else that has come up. And so, you know, this would be something that could allow a more pointed, like, hey, if you they kind of have to wink and nod and be like, hey, you can't buy, this is just looking at your library. And this would allow them to put back in direct links that say, hey, go to our website if you want to buy that stuff. Like, you can't buy stuff in the Steam app. Like, can you still buy games in the PlayStation app? Because I know you could do that at one point. I don't know what the deal was there, if Apple bent on that or if Sony is really giving them a cut, which seems crazy. I don't know what the situation is there and why they went that route. That seems like something that Sony would never agree to, is paying Apple for those purchases. So I don't know what the deal is with that or how they made that happen. we'll see where this all goes, because if you also remember recent lawsuit history, it appears that Apple is going to have to allow side loading of all apps and potentially even alternative app stores on the iPhone in the EU because of a ruling there. And I don't know if that is like full on law or if that is something that is still going to end up getting appealed or whatever else. But the idea there is, I think by 2024, they're supposed to have something in place on the iPhone that allows that. Now, I would say, and I am not a lawyer, but my reading of this, when you look at what the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals here has done in this lawsuit and kind of really said, hey, you know, and Apple's statement is that they feel that this says that they are not a monopoly, that they are not antitrust, that they're not a problem. That to me says that when that side loading stuff rolls out, it ain't going to happen in the US. That they are going to be, because they don't, Apple, the last thing in the world Apple wants to fucking do is that. And so if there is no one in each individual territory forcing them to do that, I bet it's not going to be a situation where they're like, oh, well, the EU made us do it, so I guess we're just going to do it worldwide because we only make one iPhone. No, this is going to be them going like, fuck that, and fuck you. We will do it in the EU because we have to. If you want an EU phone, move to the fucking EU. And I just do not think that Apple is going to just open it up in the US unless someone in the US forces them to do it here. Which is shitty. But I bet that's 100% how this will go. We'll have to see. We'll have to see how that all ends up, you know, because I know that there were other people looking into Apple in the US for this sort of thing, and I don't know where those efforts are, or if those went to court already, or if they're going to go to court, or whatever the deal is. But we'll see. I don't know. That just doesn't seem like something that Apple will do. And then at that point, are you going to do it just for the EU? Are you going to have two versions of your app, and you're like, well, here we can let you side load this version of the Steam app, and then you can purchase games? Are you going to maintain two different branches of your app based on where it is sold? Like, maybe you would. Maybe it's worth it, right? If you're theoretically selling a lot of things, it would probably be worth it for you to try to do that. But then what's the update structure? How do you have to then get on an alternative app store and get people to install that alternative app store because that alternative app store will handle updates? Or are you going to build updates into the app itself? Like, what's the... Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. Someone says, well, USB-C on the iPhone in Europe only? That probably will come worldwide, because there was a thing recently... I don't know if it was a patent or what it was, but it was basically Apple building something into their version of the USB spec that they would use on phones that would still be able to reject bootleg things that are not made for iPhone compliant. And so that would probably let them continue to charge a licensing fee for cables and whatever other fucking shit they need to make that needs to have whatever chip in there to talk to larger parts of the phone. Because I think the ruling around USB-C is legit just, hey, you need to be able to charge your phone with a USB cable. What the fuck? And everyone's like, oh, yeah. Yeah, why the fuck aren't you? Why do we have to deal with all these fucking cables? And they're like, oh, yeah, you want to charge your phone with USB-C? Yeah, sure, we can do that. You want to plug in this thing that lets you plug a guitar into your phone? We've got some thoughts about that. That seems like how that'll go. We'll see. Again, I don't know for sure. Like, I kind of loosely follow the Apple stuff because it is interesting to watch like some of this stuff unravel, and then watching the ways in which Apple is going to fight tooth and nail to make sure it only unravels just as far as they need to satisfy some legal requirement. And then they're like, nope, we've got to hold on to this because this is how we make our fucking money. Also, we charge a lot for the fucking phones, but also App Store revenue, huh? It's nice. We like it. We like getting it. In this week's installment of Why Are We Still Talking About Fucking LawBreakers, let's talk about LawBreakers. This is an update to last week's story where Cliff Bleszinski, Broadway's own Cliff Bleszinski, got out there and said, my lawyer hit me up about LawBreakers. What's up with that? And then people were like, wait, are you making a new LawBreaker? What, does someone want to make a new LawBreakers? What the fuck is going on? There's been an update there from him where he said, stay tuned. And now he has followed up to say that Nexon does indeed own the LawBreakers IP. And then it's so what sounds like happened is, and there's not really there's not really full disclosure here, but it sounds like what happened is that someone got a hold of Cliff's lawyer and said, hey, what's up with LawBreakers? We might be interested in doing something with that or purchasing that, or if the price is right, can we get those assets? Which is, to me sounds like some fucking state of Rhode Island selling Kingdoms of Amalur assets to some Chinese company that then drops them into some MMO that no one ever plays or whatever, so I don't really know I'm speculating on that part, but the follow-up here is basically that he then tagged the CEO of Nexon on Twitter and be like, let's talk, which sounds like he's just being a middleman to whoever wants to do the IP deal, to maybe do something with LawBreakers. And then Cliff kind of followed up and said, like, I would be willing to consult on a LawBreakers revival, but I do not want to go create a new game. It's not my thing right now. Which, good on him. Good on him for getting into other shit that he's into and not having to still be doing this stuff. I will Cliff come back to video games? I wonder. I bet he will at some point, but we'll see. We'll see. It doesn't feel like I would not. LawBreakers would not be the thing that I would let draw me back into making games if I had all this other cool shit going on. And that's not. I'm not even trying to fucking talk mad shit about, like, we talked about it. Like, LawBreakers was the XDefiant of its day. I don't know. Like, it's all right. There are things about it you go like, there's something interesting here, but not enough to survive in a highly competitive landscape and blah blah blah. Like, there's things about LawBreakers that were interesting, but again, not enough to where you'd play it over just about anything else that was like popular and well regarded at the time. And I feel like that landscape has only become more competitive. So LawBreakers in that form, like bringing that back just feels like a very much a non-starter to me. Like, you do something else with it, sure, maybe, I don't know. Who knows? I don't know what else you do. But this has got to be the last time we talk about LawBreakers. There's no way it's going to come up again. That'll be that has to be. I don't think that whatever this is will happen, and I don't think we will ever hear about LawBreakers ever again. That's my guess. This is like kind of fun. I don't know. This is like super obvious, right? This is very obvious news. In the Nikkei, they interviewed Shigeru Miyamoto, who you may remember as the creator of fucking Mario and Donkey Kong. Yeah, if you've heard of him. And they interviewed him, and kind of a bit of a ranging interview, but also mostly in the context of like, this Mario movie is making a lot of money. This is a big deal, huh? Wow. Huh? Wow. And Video Games Chronicle has translated that Nikkei interview out of Japanese and into English, which I can read. And basically says, please keep an eye on our next production. This time, Mario was the focus. But, and the quote here is, Nintendo is like a talent agency. We have many other entertainers on our roster. There are various ways to develop characters for the screen, including characters that are suitable for film and characters that are well known. So, basically saying, hey, we ain't done, which, again, no shit. you just made however many zillions of dollars with the Super Mario Brothers movie. We're not only are we gonna, I'm just gonna, hey, I'll announce it here. This is me making this up, but let's just take this as an official announcement because fucking come on. I think they're gonna make another Mario movie. I think they'll make another one of those. That's just again. But I think the interesting thing here, well, there's two things. One thing that I read and go, ugh. And then the kind of larger, more fun conversation about like, what else do they do? And who do they do it with? And the who do they do it with part is the part that I guess we'll get into first. Because Illumination, the animation studio that worked on the Mario Brothers movie, their CEO, Chris Meledandri, is on the board of Nintendo now. I missed this news. I did not know this. This happened in 2021. May 2021 is the Video Games Chronicle story on this. Illumination, of course, they made the Minions. And so even before the movie made all that money, they put Meledandri, they looked at putting Meledandri on the board. And so, there's a quote from here from Screen Rant, who has an interview with Meledandri. It says, we're so focused on this movie all the way up to Wednesday and how the audience engages with the film. Nintendo and Illumination have had a really rewarding collaboration. Mr. Miyamoto and his colleagues have invited me to join the board of directors of Nintendo, and we're working together into the future with me in that capacity, but it's hard for us to talk about anything else at this time. So I would assume then that would mean that Illumination would be the leading choice for any future Nintendo films, which would, it would make sense. But I guess, like, to me, the disappointing part about that is I think there are a lot, and hopefully they would all be smart enough to know that. But I think there are a lot of Nintendo franchises out there that you could do something with, but not all of them would fit into the typical Illumination blueprint, the template for the feature films that they seem to be known for making. And that style of animation and so on and so forth. Like, I think the obvious second choice here to me would be you make a Legend of Zelda thing. You do a Zelda thing. But that's be like a Studio Ghibli kind of thing. Like, there's just, I think you would get them to do Zelda or something. If you want to do an animated Zelda movie, to me, that would be a collaboration. That would be an alignment that would make a lot of sense to me, or it would look cool. I mean, fuck, making a lot of sense. I would look at that and be like, that would be awesome. That'd probably be awesome. You wouldn't take the Illumination style and be like, I don't know, here's Ganon and Link and Zelda, and unless you made it super fucking goofy and for kids, like you could, but like, So then, if you think about it in terms of like, if Illumination is kind of almost in a first refusal position on future Nintendo franchise films, then Zelda to me becomes a less obvious choice in favor of, well, I mean, you could do, because you already have the cast in place and you already have, the track record, like you could do a Luigi's Mansion movie, probably, Like, you would also do, I think you would do a full-on Mario movie sequel, but you could very easily turn Luigi's Mansion into some kind of animated comedy for kids. And And then you go like, okay, well then, yeah, is it Kirby? Is it like Kirby's probably the, I mean, what are the actual tentpole franchises for Nintendo these days? Because you tend to think about it as Mario and Zelda, and then everything else is just kind of on a tier below it. But if we're thinking about things that get turned into films, it kind of upends that order ever so slightly. Where you go like, okay, yeah, a lot of people in chat saying Fire Emblem. I'm like, yeah, I mean, I guess Splatoon doesn't have enough named characters, I think, to work worldwide. Yeah, you could do Donkey Kong, but yeah, you could have Donkey Kong star in some movies as well. I mean, that sounds a little direct to video to me. I think if you're doing Donkey Kong films, I think that's not, those aren't going to theaters. Luigi's Mansion, I think you could put in a theater. I don't think Donkey Kong works as well. But like, you know, yeah, what, Kid Icarus, you know, Punch Out? Do you really, I mean, the story of Punch Out, I mean, yeah, like, look, watch any boxing film. Little Mac's story is not that different from Rocky's or whatever, right? You could do it. But does that have mass appeal? Yeah, if you think about it, like, you know, and that's where I say, like, are we talking about direct to video? Because yeah, totally. You could do Punch Out. I think if you were doing Punch Out, you would do two seasons of anime. You know, when you do like 26 episodes or something. 25 to 20 episodes. Whatever of a Punch Out anime. Sure. And then you know, you kind of, he's got his trials and tribulations on the streets and in the ring, and Little Mac is going to overcome them all, and then at the end he's got to go up against his toughest opponent yet, and then it's Mike Tyson. You're like, what? Like, they fucking bring Tyson back for it. Animated Mike Tyson, why not? Yeah, there is that F-Zero anime there. I've been meaning to watch that. I'm curious about that. Yeah, I think there's a lot you could do. But like, oh, Pikmin, because okay, Internet Ghost says Pikmin, and I would initially say Pikmin does not have enough named characters, but also character to work. But the company who makes the minions could probably make, yeah, they could probably make a Pikmin thing work. They could probably make a Pikmin thing work. Yeah, I'm, you know, because I think about it like, you know, Metroid would be a really interesting anime series, I think. Again, I think, you know, you do 10 or 20 episodes of it and then you kind of move away from it. I think that would be cool. But like, that's something I would want there to be a real edge to, you know? Like, if they did a Metroid anime and it just looked like some fucking real 80s ass fucking anime, some real fucking grimy, intensely detailed fucking consoles and panels and all that shit, and then every time she rolls up into a ball, it somehow looks sickening. You're like, ugh, like the detail on her rolling up into a ball is something like, this isn't, I don't like the way this looks. You showed an X-ray view of her spine rolling in. I didn't need to see that, man. I think that could be kind of fucking cool. Yes, some real Liquid Television vibes, I guess. That's like a backwards way to look at the influence there, I guess. But yes, sure. Or like, yeah, or, you know, F-Zero in that kind of fucking over, like that deliberate 80s style. I think just anything that involves vehicles or fucking cars needs to look like fucking, I don't know, Redline or whatever else, right? If only. But yeah, F-Zero should be live action, and Tom Cruise should play Captain Falcon, and it should just be the exact plot of Days of Thunder, but F-Zero. Star Fox would be a really strong choice, I think, too. You could do that. You could definitely do Star Fox, obviously. Yeah, I don't know. And then, are you building a cinematic universe in such a way that eventually you make a Smash Brothers movie? I don't find that appealing in any way, shape, or form. And I feel like if they are approaching the cinematic universe in that way, and if they use if their end goal in mind is we eventually want to make a Smash Brothers movie, then I want them to just stop now and do none of it, because I don't think that, I think that would make all of the movies that they make along the way worse. But I don't know. This drink is still really bad. But that's fun to think about. I don't know, like the success of the Mario movie kind of makes all that stuff a lot more possible than it probably was before. I think for my money, for my interest, I would love to see them pursue things that are not the biggest thing in the world, because otherwise you're just doing Mario and Zelda and Kirby, maybe. And then that's kind of it in terms of franchises that you're turning into films. I think it's way more interesting if they're taking the approach of like, hey, some of these are going to be big theatrical releases, and then some of this is going to be some episodic television, and we've got different styles and approaches across the board. I think there's a lot you could do. I know there's that the Animal Crossing like movie recently came out, right? I meant to watch that at some point. I was just curious to see what that even is. But yeah. It's interesting. I think there's a lot you could do. Obviously, there's a lot you could do. If you take all of Nintendo's intellectual property and you say, what is stuff you could exploit in different forms? Dude, yeah, like 20 episodes of a Punch-Out thing would be fucking cool. Like another F-Zero series? Sure. I never watched the last one, but I heard it was all right. ARMS. The list goes on and on. Yeah, like some kind of Wario. Wario needs to factor into. They need to put Wario in the next Mario movie so that they can then spin him out. Like that would be the as much as you think Pikmin should be the thing, I think I would rather see a Despicable Me style thing that is Wario helmed, where Wario has created some kind of new life form to do his bidding, and it goes horribly awry. Is that the plot of Despicable Me? I don't even know. But something along those lines. Where Wario inadvertently saves the world that he himself put in danger in the first place. I don't know. The Xbox don't tweet no more. Xbox don't tweet. This story comes from Eurogamer. Microsoft has issued a statement saying, hey, you can't tweet directly from the Xbox anymore. You can still share your favorite moments to Twitter via the Xbox app on Android and iOS. This presumably is due to the Twitter API changing in such a way that they want to charge people to tweet to the platform, which seems like a very backwards approach. And let's see here. there's that. Other social media channels will still be available, like Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. So you want to post your Xbox stuff to LinkedIn. Who the fuck is doing that? But they put this out on the 20th. They said, we have had to disable the ability to share game uploads to Twitter directly from the console and game bar on Windows. You can still share your favorite moments to Twitter via the Xbox app for Android. I like we have had to disable is a really funny way of putting that. And yeah, this is just kind of another thing that has happened as Twitter continues to get dismantled and continues to go to absolute shit with some of the worst business ideas that the world has ever known. I feel like I don't feel like I have all the answers, right? I think that it's a hard problem to solve. Looking at the idea of hey, what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do to make money on Twitter? I don't think that's an easy. There's an easy solution there. But I do sure think that Twitter has stumbled into some of the worst ways to go about it. It's really interesting. I use it way less. Way less. It's really only something that I am using to post like, hey, I'm doing a thing. And even before Twitter went downhill, it was not a great platform for that style of content. People that are like, hey, go somewhere else to do a thing. Go here to watch a Twitch stream. Here's a link to a YouTube video. Here's a link to a website. Like Twitter has been, we've talked about it before, but like absolutely terrible when it comes to that type of engagement. Even in the best of times, even in the kind of the biggest accounts and stuff still don't get great engagement on that sort of stuff. That's something that I've heard game publishers talk about and bemoan for quite a long time now, as well as, I've been around social teams and all the other stuff that have had to try to get engagement on Twitter. And, it's not a great platform for that sort of stuff. And now it's even worse. So it kind of is what it is. I don't know. You wonder, like, is the goal here to ruin it? Is there someone footing the bill on this because they want to sow a lot of confusion and shit? It's conspiratorial at some point. I don't know, but it's a fucking disaster. So but I was around when I was there, man, when Friendster shit the bed. I was there when MySpace fucking sold to Fox and slowly went to shit. Man. And people just moved on to a new thing. In those cases, there were immediate and obvious things to move to that kind of made it make sense, right? When Friendster stopped loading properly, when the load on Friendster was so high that the website became unreliable, people started using MySpace. MySpace existed before that, but it hadn't really caught on in a way until Friendster started fucking up. And then around the time that MySpace got to a point where a lot of the products they were adding were more for their sponsors and less for the users, MySpace became a lot less palatable, and then everyone started moving in the direction of Facebook, which recently had become open to everyone and not just for people in college. And so Facebook was kind of there at the right place at the right time as MySpace was fucking it up. In similar ways to the way Friendster fucked it up, though, obviously MySpace sold for quite a lot of money and whatever else. And so, yeah, I don't know. It's weird because when Twitter started going south, you just kind of look at it and go like, well, you know, whatever. I've seen this before. People will migrate to another platform and that'll be that. But I think that there's just been no emergent platform that has made the obvious, that has been the obvious place to go. Because there are, in a lot of ways, there are so many more choices these days. And some of those have been around for a while and are shitting the bed in their own ways. Like, no one is happy with Instagram, right? I mean, not that it's a one-to-one fit features-wise, but no one is talking positively about Instagram because their own algorithm, everything that they've built that product into in their desperate attempt to chase TikTok, has made it worse, like significantly worse. And it's just really, it's really weird. And you look at it and go like, well, we don't need any of this shit, but like we kind of do in this day and age. Like you kind of need something, but none of them are big enough to be meaningful for you to, you know, attract a big enough audience for it to matter or whatever it is. You know, whatever your reasons are for wanting these platforms, like, there are things I like about Mastodon. And the thing I realized when another one of these started, I know like Blue Sky, like I'd be curious to try Blue Sky, I guess. I don't know. But like Spoutable was the one that I only found out about a week ago or so. And their whole thing is they are just making fucking Twitter again. And they don't have the algorithm or whatever else, but like the layout, the design of it, you look at it and you go like, yeah, you are trying to make Twitter. And the problem with all of this stuff right now, and maybe this changes and maybe it doesn't, but the problem with all of this stuff right now is that people go to these new platforms and then just use them in the fucking worst ways possible. Meaning that like all anyone talks about on a lot of these other platforms is how much they don't like Twitter. And this is so much better than Twitter. It's like, really? No one is out there courting the shit posters. The people that actually fucking stir the fucking drink. The people that actually fucking make shit happen on these platforms. They don't give a fuck. They're just like, fuck it. Like you have a drill or whoever else, and they're just going to fucking post to Twitter until it breaks. And then maybe they'll end up somewhere else. Maybe they won't. And, but like, no one is actually saying anything of interest on most of these sites. Mastodon is doing the best job of it, but Mastodon is like really good for tech type stuff. I don't know if that's just who I'm following or whatever it is, but it just feels like if you want to talk about technology, there's a ton of that on Mastodon, and it's great. You know, it's great for that purpose, but like, Mastodon doesn't feel like if I wanted to post the fucking worst shit imaginable, it would not find the right audience on Mastodon. And I think that goes for Post News and Spoutable and all of this other stuff. Like there's just kind of, it just doesn't feel like it's like being used in interesting or fun ways. It feels instead it's just like, well, where can I go to talk about the politics I like? And it's just the fucking most boring shit imaginable. Like it is not interesting. And you could make the argument of like, well, if you don't like it, you should post more interesting stuff. I'm like, yeah, I guess. I don't know. That's not my fucking job. But, but like people keep saying co-host. I love co-host. It's not a micro blogging platform. It's not trying to be a Twitter. It's not trying to be one of those types of things. It is like co-host is better Tumblr. In a lot of ways, though they don't have asks, so can't leave Tumblr. But yeah, I don't know. I think it's an interesting time because it really. Unlike the past meltdowns of Friendster and MySpace, I think the thing that's happening now is you have a lot of people who are going, well, what am I looking for out of any of this? Any of these platforms? Like, why am I doing any of this? And some people are just going like, oh, this is fine. I'm just not going to do this anymore. I don't need to find a new Twitter. I don't need to it's just fucking whatever. Who cares? They can stop using Twitter and they can, they can go on Hive. Yeah, Hive is back up and they're issuing updates to the app and no one I'm following uses it anymore. So yeah, I don't know. Twitter is still where the size is, like it or not. No one else has amassed the kind of large audience, but depending on what you want to do with that large audience, like who cares? Again, like I said, when you go and you post a link to, let's say, a live stream or something of that nature, the engagement on Twitter is always shit. And it's the thing that a lot of these dumb fucks that are now paying a monthly fee for Twitter because they think that'll get them seen more don't seem to understand. Is like, even when the algorithm didn't work that way, the people that were supposed to be getting seen more were not seeing good engagement on that stuff. You are falling into the biggest fucking trap of them all. And if you are coming out the other end of it and going like, I feel like I should be being seen by more people, I'm paying the money. Well, guess what? Joke's on you, dumb fuck. You're not shadow banned. It's just no one fucking cares about that bullshit. Dumbass. So I don't know. Social media is, it's always been a cesspool. That was always the point. And at some point it became like a place where a lot of brands and commercial businesses felt like they needed, like, this is where the people are talking, so we better get in there and inject our fucking horse shit into there. Someone's saying I mostly use Reddit. Is maybe, when it comes to brands being shitty, the ads on Reddit are the most embarrassing out there, where they try to write the text of a Reddit ad like they're like a Reddit user, and they're like making references to other subreddits. They're like, don't be all /r/blah blah blah. You need to be more like, and it's just like, I'm gonna fucking I'm gonna stick a knife in my phone and hope that the knife makes it through to the other end to whoever fucking wrote that shit. You dumb fucking stupid ass. You just look at it, it's like, ugh, God, a person wrote that. I mean, a committee of people probably wrote that, but Jesus Christ. Just the worst type of pandering to a user base, and just like, it's like you just look at it and go like, this makes me not want to read. On top of like wanting to never see this ad ever again, it makes me not want to use Reddit anymore. I mean, I already feel like I shouldn't use Reddit, but anyway, the Xbox can't post to Twitter anymore. Not a huge surprise, I suppose. Employees at Sega are planning to form a union. This comes to us from The Verge, and they have a name and everything. They have filed for a union election with the National Labor Relations Board. They are looking to call the union Allied Employees Guild Improving Sega, or AGIS. They have partnered with the Communications Workers of America, the CWA. And they have what The Verge is calling a supermajority of 144 employees across Sega's QA, localization, live service, marketing, and product development departments, which would make AGIS the largest video game union in the United States, made up of workers across numerous departments. That's interesting because I feel like a lot of the discussion around unions in video games have been largely focused on QA and not necessarily unions that are, across the board, multi-discipline sort of thing. As you might expect, they are hoping that Sega will voluntarily recognize the union, but if not, they are willing to go to it sounds like they are willing to go to the lengths to make it happen one way or the other. And yeah, good on them. It's there's some quotes here from Emma Geiger, who is a temp localization editor. Says, organizing started out with making friends, actually. You'd have a couple of people on your team that you'd hang out with after work, and then you'd see somebody in the office who was maybe not on your team, but worked in the same space, and you'd reach out, and that sort of bridges a little bit of the gap. Kind of saying that, like, remote work has made it actually really hard to organize because you're just not interacting with people on a regular basis the same way you used to when you were, in an office. Our workers and our audience deserve games made by people who make a living wage, is the mission statement of the union. And they also say, in our quest to reclaim our collective power, we have built bridges with fellow workers from across our company in an effort to understand our shared issues and those that are unique to each department. Yeah, we'll see how it goes. That's interesting. They seem like they are pretty far along in the process, and they're looking to file, and they have the numbers, and we'll see what happens next. There's one of those things where you go like, oh, well, yeah, maybe they'll voluntarily recognize the union. And then in the back of my mind, I'm like, or they just move all that shit to fucking Europe and they shut down Sega of America completely. Which seems like the type of shitty thing a company may do in this day and age. Where you've got companies that are like, wow, what was it? Who was it? I mean, Starbucks, I think, has done this numerous times where they're like, oh, this store is getting ready to unionize. Oh, we've decided to close that location. Weird how that works. Like that sort of fucking horse shit. It will be interesting to see where this goes. It's been, this feels like in a lot of ways, this is, well, I don't want to, I'm just going to say this feels like it's a long time coming. Yeah. But obviously other, Raven and some other companies out there have been trying to make it happen for quite a long time here. I guess this is the thing here is that saying that they have a super majority of people is maybe the big difference here, where it's like, oh, you've already kind of done the organizing and now you're ready to file and ready to make all this happen. Like that's interesting. We'll see how that all goes. Wish them the best. That's going to do it for news. And now why don't we get into a handful of emails from you. podcast@guard.bike is the email address. Write to the folks over at Guard Bike Heavy Industries and see what they have to say about your emails. Such as, let me load up the email. It's loading. It's still loading. I'm clicking on the podcast tab. That's the wrong tab. I'm clicking on the starred emails tab. There we go. Bo writes in and says, with boxed games representing an ever-decreasing share of overall sales, does the holiday window matter less now than in years past? Personally, it feels so anticlimactic to give a download card as a holiday gift rather than a boxed game, to the point that I've stopped trying to buy Switch games as presents for my nephew. I think the holiday window does still matter because whether you've got people giving games as gifts or you've got people giving gift cards to online stores or whatever, I think you're still seeing a lot of gift money changing hands in that window, and that is leading to people then going like, oh, you got me a card to the Nintendo store, I'm going to buy 3 Switch games or a Steam gift card or whatever. So I think that holiday window does still matter, but I think we've seen increasingly over the years that if it's the right thing for the game to delay out of the holiday window and ship in Q1, that a lot of those Q1 releases have still gone on to sell just fine. They're still finding an audience regardless of when they do ship. But, the holiday window, a lot of times that would be a bloodbath, because you would have all the big games coming out in Q4, and then 3 of them would rise to the top and the rest would get trampled. You'd have games that were expecting to do much bigger business than they were. They're just like, oh, another bigger game came out that holiday season and crushed us. And so spreading out across the year, you have something that's a little bit more like the movie calendar, where You have companies that are more willing to experiment with more times of the year. I'd be curious to know what summer numbers are like in terms of engagement and people playing games. You would kind of hear it both ways, where like, oh, it used to be when access to the internet was not as guaranteed as it was, you would see a lot of games drop off in the summer because college kids would go home for the summer and they would not be in front of their computers. They would not be near good internet, and they would not be near the stuff that they were playing. And in theory, people would go outside and go on vacation and do other stuff during the summer that would not involve playing video games. And so traditionally, that was always kind of those were kind of the things that would prevent summer from being a good time for games. That was something back in the day we would see in terms of website traffic. Is as soon as colleges started letting out, you would just see this line of just like, oh, none of those people have internet anymore, and none of them are reading our website. Fuck. Kind of that right around E3. Like E3 would be this huge thing, and then after that it'd just be like until the fall. And that changed over time because obviously those demographics changed, access to the internet changed, where more and more people had high-speed internet at home. So they would come home from college and still have internet, basically, But in the 90s, you would see pretty standard and substantial drop off in the summertime, and I assume that applied to video games as well. Nowadays, no one ever goes outside anywhere, and people are always near their shit, and they're happy to do their thing. So yeah, it's I think the holiday window does still matter. It probably doesn't matter quite as much as it used to, but again, I think there's still a lot of gifting, happening. And if that gifting has changed from buying copies of games to instead buying gift cards for stores or whatever, gift certificates or what have you, I think that money is probably still being spent. Davis from Syracuse writes in and says, when Virtua Fighter was ported to the Saturn, there were reports that players were so angry that it prompted AM2 to apologize, develop Virtua Fighter Remix, and then mail out free copies to Saturn owners in the US as a gesture of goodwill. My question is, what did this fan anger look like at the time? It would be much easier for that kind of discourse to gain traction today, but with the internet being what it was in 1995, how did this fan reaction make its way to Sega? Do you think Virtua Fighter Remix did enough to win back the fans? Or with VF2 already out in arcades, was it too little too late? I think you would probably have people writing letters, but I wonder if this outrage was primarily... I wonder if this outrage primarily came out of Japan, if the Japanese market was the ones that were saying, hey, this is a shameful release and you need to do better. Like, I wonder, there's obviously, like, you can send letters to Sega, you could send letters to magazines about how angry you are, but I don't think that, I don't remember there being a widespread outrage in Japan, or I'm sorry, in the United States, because there wasn't a widespread anything when it came to the Saturn in the US. So I think this was people in Japan saying this sucks, especially in a case where VF2 was already out or just about to come out there. I'd have to look at the dates. And I don't know that VF Remix was free in Japan. I know that my Japanese copy of VF Remix looks like something that was sold in a store. So I think that might have just been something they did in the US, and it was something that was probably very cheap for them because they probably had not sold that many Saturns. And when I got my copy of VF Remix in the mail, it was in a paper sleeve. It wasn't in a full-size box. It was, it was just like this thing they sent out. I guess the other thing I'd say is I think VF Remix looks like fucking dog shit. I think it looks like the texture work they did there, trying to texture those characters and make them look, it looks fucking terrible. I think it is an extremely ugly fucking game. I think the raw polygons of VF1, even on the Saturn, I would probably still take original VF1 over VF Remix, because I think the original art style of that game is better. And so the idea that VF Remix was somehow going to like satiate people is crazy, because it's fucking ugly as shit. I think the thing that saved them was Virtua Fighter 2 coming out on the Saturn and being like a really like great port of that game, given the Saturn's capabilities and whatever else. Like VF2 was a really awesome port on Saturn. And I think that just made the problem go away, and no one ever thought about it again. But I really don't think very many people in the US were sitting there going like, I can't believe how fucking terrible VF1 looks. It looked like fucking VF1. You know, it didn't. Was it arcade perfect? Absolutely not. Was it the best port possible? Probably not. But it was mostly okay. Like, you weren't looking at it. I never looked at the pack-in Virtua Fighter 1 for Saturn and went like, oh, why is this so fucking terrible? And so, again, like I said, when VF Remix showed up, it was just like, this is, again, absolute fucking trash. Like, to me, if they had put these games out in the opposite order, if VF Remix was the thing that came out, then I would be like, oh yeah, this is disgusting. Like, they need to fix this. What the fuck have they done? And then if they put out regular VF1 after that and gave that out for free, I'd be like, okay, yeah, now we're talking. Because the faces on those fucking characters is so fucking terrible. Oh my god, VF Remix is such fucking shit, man. Oh my god, I hate the way it looks so goddamn much. And never understood any part of that outrage. It was just like, god, this is terrible. So I think, yeah, when VF2 came out, they made it a pack-in, and I'm sure that probably solved a lot of the problems, because no one bought a Saturn back then, and so very few people had to experience the magic of either of those games, I guess. But yeah, I'm guessing that the fan outcry was probably coming out of Japan on that. Ufta 80 says the Daytona port was the real thing to be upset about. Yeah, you know, sure. That port of Daytona was about as good as. I mean, I certainly wasn't expecting it to be dramatically better, because, you know, you didn't really know the capabilities. It was so early on in the Saturn's lifespan. You weren't really sure what it was capable of and everything else. You just kind of like, okay, yeah, it's Daytona. It's not arcade perfect. That's for sure. I hate VF Remix so much. I swear. It's so ugly. Oh gosh. It was like getting a turd in the mail. It's like, hey, this game that you're not really playing anymore because it was a launch game, we reissued it and made it worse. Like, oh, thanks for sending me this. Thanks for sending me this ugly fucking game. Oh man. Yeah, Virtua Fighter 1 is, I mean, you know, it's a very basic game. VF2 eclipses it in so many ways that, you know, it's not that interesting to even talk about anymore, right? But yeah, you know, the way those characters look in VF Remix is so gross. Yeah, Fighters Megamix was the real apology. I mean, yeah, obviously now on the other side of the full library, we can look back on it and go like, who was even talking about these games? When we have Fighters Megamix that we could be talking about instead. Yep. Freaky Chic has it right. The perfect Saturn game, 3 Dirty Dwarves. Yep. Doesn't get any bigger than 3 Dirty Dwarves on the Saturn. That's where the real action is. Oh gosh. Carlo writes in from Sacramento, of all places. Gosh. Our state's capital. From friend of mine had some big car part thrown at him on a bike path. Like someone came out of a bush with some kind of heavy block and tried to throw it at him in an attempt to rob him in Sacramento. This is, yeah, okay. So, okay. Carlo writes in from Sacramento. The big discourse in fighting games at the moment is regarding Street Fighter 6 and the betas being cracked. Even if the game on launch might differ to those tests, those who had the crack can acclimate to the game easier. One high-profile Japanese player believes that players who publicly displayed it should be permanently banned from competition. So if you're not familiar with it, you know, obviously they ran their beta a while back and people modded it and cracked it and whatever else to be able to play it local multiplayer. And I don't know if they unlocked additional characters or not. I don't know what it was. But basically they took the beta and they were still able to play it and access it outside of the windows and the ways which Capcom intended to make it available. And so in some cases, people then take that hacked setup and bring it to their locals and show up and like, hey, you want to play some Street Fighter 6? We got this fucking fucked up beta here. And so people are able to play it and whatever else. So the idea here is that this gives players who are breaking the law a potential advantage because they will have had more time with the game than everyone else. That's why people would be upset about this, just to give that context. Let's go back to the email. I do see their point, especially in a country where piracy and modification of games are enforced differently compared to everywhere else. With $2 million overall on the line for the Capcom Pro Tour, there's that too. So yeah, bigger prize creates a potentially bigger incentive for people to go out there and hack the game and get access to it. While not necessarily counterpoints, I do get reminded of Japan having advantages for having various games in arcades a lot longer than everyone else. I also get reminded of the Injustice ban the testers situation, where notable players got the privilege to help in game balance. Should those folks who showed the crack get banned? If you're showing crack on Twitch, you get banned. You got to go to Kick if you're trying to show hole. You're trying to post hole. Go to co-host. Should players just adapt? What is your take on this? So, if you don't remember, the Injustice ban the testers thing was like a situation where NetherRealm brought in people from the community and they worked in a QA context on the game where they gave their suggestions on balance, but also it meant that they got to play a lot of that game before it came out. And so I think that would give those players who have had more time to play the game and more time to come up with tech and come up with strategies will have an advantage. But I think that advantage is lessened over time. So I think probably what I would do, first of all, I think anyone that is out there publicly showing that they have the cracked fucking beta should absolutely be fucking banned from tournament play. I think that's just, you just look at that and go like, hey, asshole, fucking, don't fucking advertise, stupid ass. What are you doing? You are too dumb to compete in our tournament. But also, I think that what I would probably do in this situation is, and this is probably what I would have done in the Injustice situation as well, is I would do this in an early fashion. This is something that this is like a temporary situation because I think their advantage will be temporary. Eventually, everyone gets access to that game in 5 weeks, and thus you will have players that have spent more time with the game, and potentially they would have an advantage. Potentially, it's not guaranteed. But I think what I would do is anyone in the Injustice situation, I would have taken those people that were testing and would have said like, okay, you can't play in any of our official tournaments for 9 months. 9 months, a year? I'd say 9 months. That seems like because I was thinking 6, and then I was thinking 12. Maybe 9 is just a happy medium there. And so I would actually take anyone who has been shown to have access to the game a lot longer than officially intended, and ban them from the Capcom Pro Tour for this year, for these prize pools especially. I would say, hey, you're out. Nope, you do not get to compete. But again, I think that advantage is lessened over time. So people will get their hands on the game. They will, because Evo comes up really soon, right? Like Evo is pretty fucking fast after this. Yeah, 2 months after the release of the game. So I think in that situation, I would take those people out of that pool and say, like, you cannot compete at Evo. You cannot fucking be here because you have been exposed to too much of the game. Just and what's the actual effect on it? We'll never really know. Like, is it going to turn some fucking middling player into the fucking world? Are they going to go win? Probably not. It's not spending the fucking time in the lab is not immediately going to turn people into the greatest players in the world. You'll still have people that have better instincts. You'll still have people that can pick up that game in that 2-month window and probably continue to dominate the way that a lot of those players have been able to over the course of multiple games. And so I don't necessarily think that this is going to... I don't think people that have had access to the game is necessarily going to upset the pure balance of the Pro Tour or of Evo or of any of this other shit. But in order to just ensure that that's not a fucking problem, that no one can say that, in order to maintain the appearance of fairness, especially in early days, with this much money on the line, I would just remove those people and just be done with it. Just be like, yep, you're out. Because you don't want that you just don't want that to be hanging over it one way or the other, right? Again, like the actual impact, it'll have is on, early ranked games online or whatever else. But also, yes, so Zephyroth makes a good point here, is that Capcom does give out early copies of games to some pros, and just much like NetherRealm had, pro players helping to test Injustice. Like, you will have players that will have access to that game outside of the norm, right? I will say that I have had another opportunity to play that full game that I am not able to do for timing reasons. So, you will have situations where players are going to be able to, like, what was it? There was the one, was it MVC3? That, like, some fucking pro player ended up with a copy of it and fucking went to Vegas and just started playing it, like, with a bunch of people, and someone from Capcom fucking flew out and said, hey, asshole, give me that disc right fucking now. So, yeah, I think that I would probably... But also, I think that would be the thing, man. Like, if you're going to give that game to players early, to pro players, yeah, it's sticky, man. It's because, again, this is something that, Capcom has certainly given copies of games to pro players early, much like they've given it to reviewers, like, that's not, I would also say that if I ended up getting an early copy of Street Fighter 6, that I should be signing a thing that says, I realize by fucking entering this code into a PlayStation storefront or whatever, that I am not allowed to participate in tournaments for a 9-month period, Like, I would be, not that I'm a fucking threat one way. You could give me that game and I could fucking play it for 24 hours a day for 6 months. I'm not going to go fucking win Evo. Maybe I could. But again, I think the important thing here is the appearance of a level playing field. is to do the best you can to level that playing field. And I think that's a situation where, like, yeah, they probably shouldn't be giving pro players access to the game early. They probably shouldn't be allowing people with cracked betas into tournaments. And I guess the other side of it, I would say, is how can they fucking stop it? How can they realistically stop this? Because yeah, I would think that a lot of players who did have access to the beta are not out there fucking advertising it. You have some people that are dumb, they're out there going like, look, man, we can play. And that's dumb. And they shouldn't fucking do that. Keep that shit quiet if you're going to do that. No one wants to hear about it. But in an ideal scenario, you would provide an exact level playing field for every single player in the world, right? And I don't know how you do that. Yeah, you could delay the tournament and not have the money happen or whatever, but like what you're creating is a situation for anyone who loses to gripe about it and say that, oh, this is why I lost. Has nothing to do with me being dog shit at the game. Turns out Daigo's been cheating. Tokido's been, I can tell that's not day one tech. You know, it's yeah, I think it's obviously really hard, and I think video games, you know, because you can even say like, oh, well, you know, some people broke Street Date and whatever else. So I guess I don't. To me, the right answer is anyone that has early access to the game should not be allowed to compete. Period. Obviously, the reality is much harder to enforce than that. Yeah, send in the fucking Pinkertons, man. What are they doing? Getting back Magic cards, getting back fucking leaked copies of Street Fighter 6, right? And that's, yeah. What the fuck is that about, man? Someone bought a bunch of Magic cards and then started streaming them, ended up with, if this is accurate, ended up with an unreleased batch of Magic the Gathering cards and then decided to open them on a live stream. And then literal Pinkertons showed up at this fucking guy's doorstep to get the cards back and threaten him with jail time and all this other stuff, which is like, great. The fucking, yeah, it's like, what was he going to form a union? What do you got to get the Pinkertons in there to fuck it all up? Great. Awesome. This makes the Magic the Gathering people, who is that? I guess it's Wizards of the Coast. Is that Hasbro? Who the fuck owns this now? Makes them look like real fucking dicks. There's probably a way to do this that doesn't involve having fucking people show up at someone's door and threaten them. And it's real weird. And threatened with jail time. It's like, you were just the Pinkertons. You were not cops. And so I'd be curious about what the rest of that story is, because it sounds like the person who had the cards, like their wife opened the door and then immediately started getting threatened by some big security guard. I think at that point you would just like close the door and be like, come back with a warrant, I guess. Like, are you a cop? Okay, I'm going to go. I'm closing this door. If you want to break down this door and fucking go to jail over it, then we can fucking take it there, but I am going away. Call the fucking cops. Bring a fucking warrant. You want these cards back. But, you know, these are fear tactics deployed on someone who probably didn't know what the deal was, and they scare people into fucking, you know, like, a fucking shit situation that is. Go look that story up when we're done here, because I'm, you know, it's a fascinating fucking, like, the Pinkertons showed up because someone had some Magic the Gathering cards they weren't supposed to have. What? How? What the? What? All right, last email here. Devin from Houston writes in, it says, last week's podcast talking about leakers caused me to remember an interesting situation I was in back in the mid-2000s. I was living in Austin, and I had it on reasonable authority that BioWare Austin was working on an unannounced Star Wars MMO. This was the old Republic, if you don't remember. I posted this to a major site's message board at the time, and the thread came and went without much notice. When the game eventually was announced a year or so later, I went back to bump that thread, despite not using that forum any longer. Come to find out, it was literally deleted from my post history. There was no record of the thread, nor the many exchanges on it. All of my other posts were logged, but not that one or any of its replies, etc. I can only imagine that some community manager or EAPR type pressured the site to have it removed. It made me wonder if that sort of thing is common, and have you ever faced any pressure to censor a leak or info given to you? Similarly, have you ever not reported on something you know because of concern over how it would impact your relationships with friends, connections, etc.? I'm trying to think, because there were situations where because like people would post shit to the message boards on GameSpot all the time, and I don't remember a ton of like very direct situations where someone was leaking something ahead of time on our boards. That may have been a case like that probably wouldn't have touched editorial. That would have been like business people going to moderators and saying like, hey, can you delete this? And maybe that had happened. I don't know. And I'm trying to think. I'm sure it happened before. I just can't really remember. I can't really remember anything specific. I don't know. But, that's never, I don't know that I've ever been involved in that, other than in cases where if we were signed to an embargo on something and something leaked ahead of time, you then had to have the conversation about like, okay, so are you trying to maintain this embargo? Be like, oh, IGN broke embargo, or some small site broke the embargo, or, however the information leaked out, and we're sitting here on this information that we can't run for another 5 days. Then it's like, okay, well, we need to run this shit because it's out there. We know it to be true. We should just run what we have. And then publishers being like, no, we're getting them to take it down. Like, okay, everyone has noticed and probably taken screenshots of it, and that's not going to make the conversation go away. Like, them taking it down is only going to further verify that this information is real. Are we just going to do a little song and dance for 5 days and not cover it? And that was what they wanted us to do. And I'm sure there were cases where we did do exactly that. But the policy we were always pushing for was that if someone else leaked it, we ran everything we had immediately. Boom, done. Fuck this. And the actual problem with trying to have policies like that is that very few NDAs are actually signed documents. There are some that are. But generally speaking, it is like, hey, you're getting an email from someone and saying like, hey, I'm going to send you this game. Can you agree to this embargo? And this is still how it happens. And then I am responding to an email saying like, yes, I would like, if you could send me the PC version of this game, and then yes, I will play the Star Wars, and then we won't talk about the Star Wars until such and such date. There's no contract. There's no legally, I mean, you could probably say that an email is legally binding in some way, or you gave your word, whatever, some verbal contract or email contract type of thing that you could probably lean on. But it really is just like, it's more of like a, hey, if you don't do this, and then we're never going to trust you again, and then you're not going to have access to this sort of stuff. Which is a way you can go. I mean, that was, I think Kotaku tried to do that for a while, where Kotaku was at a point where they were saying, we are never going to agree to an embargo ever. If you approach us and ask us to sign an embargo, we will not do it. So know that going in. We are not going to hold things. When we hear about stuff, we will run it. And at the time, Kotaku had a really awesome team of reporters that were out there getting stuff. And so Kotaku was the biggest problem we had for the longest time, because they would find out about stuff, and they'd find out about it from other fucking writers in some cases, because, we all fucking talk. And then they would not necessarily use that as their primary source, but then that would give them a hint of like, oh, okay, this game's happening. Okay, well, let's go fucking talk to, this people. Let's try to dig through this and try see if we can find out something legit. And so they were the ones running a lot of those stories because they had a lot of great sources. They had a lot of great contacts, and they were willing to run those sorts of stories at a time when the big websites were very relationship focused. And Kotaku was the one outlet out there that was just like, no, fuck this. We're going to report shit. We're going to do our fucking jobs. And I think the right answer is somewhere in the middle, right? Where it's like, the nice thing about embargoes is that it gives you time to prep something that's actually worth watching or reading. And in some cases can be used to provide a level playing field. So imagine a scenario where, and this has happened dozens and dozens of times, a company comes to San Francisco and they're going up and down 2nd Street. They're going to the IGN office. They're going to the GameSpot office. This is back when there were video game websites on 2nd Street. IGN might still be there. No, they moved too, didn't they? Man. Fuck. And so they're going to show off their game. It's either it's unannounced or it's announced and it's the first hands-on, whatever it is. They're like, hey, we got a build of a game. We're bringing it to your office. We're going to give you 5 screenshots. You can play it and write up a preview. Now, what we would do is we would try to get the first appointment, the earliest appointment possible, the first one that they had. Like, come to the airport and then come straight to our offices. Go wherever else after that, but come here first. Because in situations where they did not establish an embargo, we would turn that story around in fucking an hour and a half and have it up while they were still up the street at IGN or at 1UP or whoever else. Like they're driving to someone else's office and we're putting up screenshots and news stories and like, fuck this, but go. And so then like the appointment schedule becomes unfair in a weird way. And so you end up in a situation where you're like, okay, we're going to come out here on Tuesday and we're going to visit everybody on Tuesday and Wednesday. And then how about everyone runs their stories on Friday morning? That way it's fair. That way it doesn't, if you got the last appointment, you can still run your story. No one's getting fucked over by a schedule. And so it was, done for those sorts of reasons. I think that's a fine reason to do it. That in this day and age, what does that even mean anymore, right? But, well, I'll tell you, I mean, when I went to go see Star Wars not that long ago, they had an embargo for when all that stuff could run. If they didn't, that was those sessions were broken up into like multiple days. So some people had already seen the game the day before. In a situation where there was no NDA or no embargo or anything like that, that would be a situation where anyone who went the day before would have already run their coverage, and then I'd be going the day after going like, well, what the fuck? Why am I even bothering? This shit's already everywhere. Who fucking cares? Like, hey, I've got the first hour. It is less valuable in that type of competitive environment. And so that's why a lot of those NDAs exist, is because, and that ends up benefiting the publisher in another way, because it used to mean that like when that embargo hit, all attention was focused on one game because everyone ran the same story and everyone had it. Here's our top slot story on Star Wars. And, so it was like you got this kind of lane to yourself and your game by virtue of like, we showed this game off to everybody. And now Thursday morning, we know that unless something crazy happens and someone else has scheduled an embargo for the same time and we don't know about it, that we're pretty sure that this is going to be the big story of the day everywhere across the internet. And that works out to their benefit as well. And so, there are still reasons to do that sort of stuff. And I think it ends up benefiting people on our end of things because it gives us time to create something that is not rushed and super shitty. Ideally. Where you're like, okay, well, I played that and in 2 days the article can run. I don't have to like write it like I was at E3 and fucking shit it out and put it, that's better for the people reading the story. That's better for the people writing the story. And it's fair for all the different outlets that will cover it. But But yeah, I don't know. It was always really when Kotaku came on the scene, when Crescente was running Kotaku, it was even pre-Totillo. I don't know if Totillo had the same policy or not. I don't remember. But they felt like a rogue entity. And I mean that in a good way. Like they made us get better because they were not willing to play by those same rules. They were not out there looking to maintain relationships because they didn't have to rely on getting a review copy early. You know, so much of our traffic was wrapped up in like, we have a timely review of a game. And they were not that. They were purely news focused. And so Kotaku changed everything for the way online stuff was done by virtue of them. And in some cases, they were running shit that just didn't feel like it had reliable sources. And you have cases where they were wrong about something, for sure. But their track record was very good. And they were a real thorn in the side of our news team. And they really, they forced us to adapt in ways that I was kind of stoked about, but like it was a lot easier before stuff like that started happening, I'll say. And yeah. Anyway, that's going to do it for the show this week. Thanks everybody for sticking around, listening, all that sort of stuff. I'm going to get going. I'll start playing the music. What do we got the rest of this week? I will at some point be doing something with Star Wars. I gotta look at their dates and see what's gonna line up because I'm still playing through the game, and I will probably stream some of it when I'm able, but I think that is not gonna happen at the time when all the reviews hit. So I think the streaming stuff will be separate if I had to guess. I need to go reread that. But yes, tomorrow we'll be here playing some games, doing something. Pat Bear is going to join us. He's gonna be broadcasting live from the Bear Cave into our homes, and we'll catch up with Pat, and we'll play some games. I don't know. I got some stuff I got to get through, some games I want to check out, and maybe we'll have Pat along for the ride. Something to that effect. I got to talk to Pat. We'll figure it out. But yeah. Anyway, that should be Wednesday, and be back on Friday with some other stuff. Have a good one. Take care.